collectibles. Visit us online at alamomilitary.com or call 314-638-6505 today.
JC's got a new Saturday night show.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. 3 big hours of great tunes from the 90s, 80s, and 70s. Plus bits and pieces that'll take you back to the best years of your past.
It's our debut Saturday night at 6, brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group. This week, Bob Seger talks about the worst concert venue he ever played. Spoiler alert, it was right here in Missouri.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. NewsTalkSTL.
The Democrat Party is going to have to go back toward the center.
News, analysis, and opinion.
I've never called a talk show before, but this just irked me.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Peace following an overnight attack on Kiev. It killed at least 9 people, injured more than 70 others. BBC's John Donison is in the Ukrainian capital.
In the early hours of the morning, anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky over central Kyiv as Russia attacked the city with missiles and drones. Explosions could be seen from our rooftop position and people ran for shelter. The northeastern city of Kharkiv was also targeted. The attacks come as diplomatic efforts to bring an end to the war grind on.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says President Trump is frustrated that Ukrainian President Zelensky has ruled out ceding Crimea to Russia as part of any potential peace deal.
The president is not asking Ukraine to recognize Crimea. Nobody has asked them to do that. What he is asking is for people to come to the negotiating table recognizing that this has been a brutal war for far too long. And in order to make a good deal, both sides have to walk away a little bit unhappy.
And Vice President Vance says the Ukraine talks have reached a crucial turning point, suggesting the time for talk is just about over.
It's now time, I think, to take, if not the final step, one of the final steps, which is at a broad level, the party saying, we're going to stop the killing, we're going to freeze the territorial lines at some level close to where they are today.
So many people lined up to view Pope Francis lying in state at St. Peter's Basilica. The Vatican kept the doors open all night long. The Vatican says that more than 50,000 people had paid their final respects in the first 12 hours of the public viewing. Watching Wall Street this morning, stock futures pointing to a lower open later on. Dow futures down 157 points, while the NASDAQ futures are off 39 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
See, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard joining MediShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MediShare works, too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared more than $7 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care, whether you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan that you're happy with. Here you go. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. It's 844-41-BIBLE. That's 844-41-BIBLE. 844-41-BIBLE.
Palestinian President Abbas is urging Hamas to surrender its arms. We get the latest on that from the Media Line's Felice Friedson.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was the center of attention on Wednesday after admonishing Hamas terrorists to release the remaining hostages held since it invaded Israeli border communities on October 7, 2023. The octogenarian head of the Palestinian Authority exhorted Hamas to lay down its weapons, turn over control of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority, and become part of the political landscape of a new entity many expect will rise from the ashes of the devastated enclave. In Jordan, the powerful Muslim Brotherhood was banned and any media mention of the organization forbidden. Critics are asking why it took Abbas 18 months, while some suggest influence from Washington. I'm Felice Friedson, Town Hall News, Jerusalem.
News and analysis at themedialine.org and townhall.com. Well, this explains some Oscar wins.
If you ever wondered how a questionable film won an Oscar, this may be the reason. Members of the Academy were not required to watch the films. Oscar voters are now required to actually watch the movies they are voting on. The Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences made the announcement Monday, along with other updates. Up until now, actually seeing the nominated film was only required for voting in certain Oscar categories, like Best Documentary and Best International Film. Tasha Stevens reporting.
China has been investing heavily in its space program, and it shows. Communist country has launched 3 astronauts on a mission to replace the crew on board China's space station. The launch comes as plans for a manned mission to the moon draw ever closer. More on these stories at townhall.com.
When you've got something to say, be heard loud and clear.
If they'll just do what they were voted in to do.
This party needs to get a backbone. They need to get some spine.
Join the conversation. St. Louis's place to talk.
The Democrats and the Republicans can give us all the lip service they want, but what they need to do is take action today.
101.9 and 94.1.
You know, you have to take a stand sometimes.
This is News Talk STL. News, analysis, and opinion. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84 this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday. Not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Sheen.
This hour of News Talk STL, brought to you by Jewels on Hampton, paying some of the highest prices for your gold, silver, diamonds, and more. Call 314-752-5000 or visit jewelsonhampton.com. Mike Ferguson.
It's a miracle we're not in prison.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
Are you kidding me?
Get up, St. Louis.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up, this is your cousin.
All right, there's a big change coming to Illinois politics. Big news that happened. We'll tell you about that. Let you hear from the guy who says I'm going away. Also, how much power should public schools have over kids on their own time? Every once in a while, this pops up, Gabe.
Yeah, we've seen these kind of cases like you said, every once in a while.
Yeah, and now there's one in Missouri. We're actually going to talk to the lawyer fighting back against the schools, but it's such a bizarre case. That's going to be at 6:35 here. And the Blues need a win tonight. Their backs aren't completely up against the wall right now, but they're feeling back like, where's the wall? They're getting pretty close there in these playoffs. All right, 6:07 right now. Let's go ahead and get things going with a news dump.
Successful dump. Wake up, America. It all worked out.
They got all the news.
The morning news dump.
All right. Quick follow-up on the case we've been talking about this week. The Supreme Court hearing arguments on Tuesday on whether parents can opt their children out of lessons on gender ideology and sexuality. Basically, whether parents have the right to say, no, public schools, you will not continue to groom my kids. The original case coming from Montgomery County, Maryland, where parents say their kids were being forced to read books on a lot of left-wing social issues, including LGBT stuff. Education Secretary Linda McMahon was asked about that on Fox's America's Newsroom.
Well, I'm not sure what the Supreme Court will do. I think it's a little hard to always guess, but they seem certainly to, at least in their comments, be on the side of parents, as I clearly am, and I think the Department of Education is, for parental rights.
So a decision on the case is expected by the end of June. Opponents of the parents, the pro-school people here, they say that letting parents opt their kids out of the ideology training, a.k.a. sexual grooming, that's too much of a burden on the schools. And they say, well, no children are being forced to change their religious beliefs or practices. We're just going to have taxpayers pay for the activists to try to indoctrinate them and compete with the parents on that.
It's so crazy that they would cast it that way. It's like, oh yeah. We're not forcing you to change. We're just taking the spongy and easily influenced brains of your children and force feeding our ideology into them for several hours a day. And no big deal, right? No big deal.
Yeah. And did you see Ketanji Brown Jackson? She was trying to argue for the schools, and she goes, well, those parents don't have to have their kids' school. They don't like what they're teaching. They can go to another school. Maryland's one of the toughest, most expensive places to do that because that's the suburbs of DC. Just proving once again that Ketanji Brown Jackson is, I mean, I know she's a Supreme Court justice, but she's
not smart.
She's dumb.
Yeah, she is not smart. Now, well, and here's the other thing. If you're saying, well, you can take your kids elsewhere, well, why can't I do it today?
Right.
So, why? If you're saying take your kids elsewhere for the entire year, why can't I just do it today when I got this stupid lesson?
God. And the law says if you don't put your kids there, then you have to document it and, basically prove that you're putting them. I mean,
it's a truancy violation.
Yeah. Good Lord. All right. Illinois' most powerful politician is retiring. Yeah. Senator Dick Durbin, the second highest ranking Democrat in the U.S. Senate, made that announcement on social media on Wednesday.
The decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term.
So Dick Durbin was first elected to the U.S. House in 1982 and then to the United States Senate in 1996, which means 5 terms in the Senate. So he literally was elected during Ronald Reagan's first term.
Yeah. I caught that. Gosh, wow. These guys' careers are way too long.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I understand the value of being able to, develop a knowledge and an understanding of how the system works. You develop all the relationships as much as we kind of poo-poo that. The relationships building is important in Washington, D.C. or in any governing body and things like that. I understand the value that can come from that. But man, that type of stuff where you're in office for longer than I've been alive, it feels like I want the term limits. You know what I mean? It makes me feel a little term limity.
He's 80.
And that's another one. It's like, I'm not sure if I want to retire, bro. You should be sitting on your porch in a rocking chair with your grandkids right now and a glass of sweet tea. Get out of Washington, D.C. right now.
Yeah. So his term is up at the end of, the election is next year. His term's technically up in 2027, but the election for that seat will be, and there's going to be a free-for-all in the Democratic Party in Illinois running to try to, establish themselves as the front runner there.
A question. Do you think this is actually voluntary?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I think he is that. I think he is that powerful. I think he also realizes that if the Democrats don't get some new, younger blood in there who can establish, the next round of being in there for 30, 40, 50 years, that at some point public sentiment is pushing back against them. So, he would win re-election.
Oh, easily.
I mean, he really would.
Of course.
But then he would be 86 or 87 by the end of the term.
Okay.
So I think he's, and maybe he's like, you know what, maybe I do want to go fishing. Of course, remember he was the lead guy in getting Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court.
Sure was. Yeah.
Great legacy there, dude.
Good on you, bro.
All right. Elon Musk says he's reducing his time with Doge starting next month. When asked about it, President Trump, obviously still speaking highly of Elon Musk as an advisor, and he blamed Musk's temporarily stepping away from government. He blamed that on protest against Tesla. And then obviously between the activist/terrorist and then also the press.
Everything he does is good, but they took it out on Tesla. And I just thought it was so unfair because he's trying to help the country, but he has helped the country. I also want him to make sure that he's going to be in great shape. And I know he is. I mean, he's going to do great. He loves the country. He didn't need to do this. He did it.
So Doge was going to sunset on its own.
Right.
In another, couple years. And now Tesla's stock is down. Their sales are down. Obviously, you could relate that directly to the activism and the violence of the terrorism as well. So his announcement actually set Tesla shares back up just by saying, I'm going to step away from Doge. So then maybe at some point we get into the question. So does that mean that the violence worked?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, is that a victory for the left extremists who are willing to, damage stuff and hurt people?
Now, interestingly enough, if they had simply taken the Bud Light protest version of it, where they said, well, okay, well, I'm not buying and I'm selling my own shares, and basically taking a personal stake in that protest. We'd be able to gauge how much of this effect is due to a legit protest on their part, as opposed to the violence. But since they tied it so much to the violence, you basically have to say, well, this is the result of terrorist action.
Yeah, precisely. All right. 12 states, including Illinois, are suing the Trump administration over his deployment of tariffs. The attorneys general of the states filed the action in the United States Court of International Trade. Their argument is that the tariffs require congressional approval, and they are arguing the president doesn't have unilateral authority to do that. And the 12 states involved are 12 of those that you would expect, you know, all deep blue states on that. All right. It is a big night for the Blues. They are down 2-0 in the playoffs. Game 3 of that series with Winnipeg is tonight at Enterprise Center. That's a late game. It's the 8:30 game tonight. So anybody want to go down to downtown St. Louis? It's starting at 8:30 at night and be there until about 11 or 12 at night. No,
yeah,
I don't think so.
No, thanks.
But if you don't want to do that, ESPN2 and FanDuel are both carrying that game. This is a best of 7 series. So their back's not to the wall yet, but they need the game to go their way tonight, so their backs are not against the wall.
Yes.
All at once depart, no destination, making cold mind to fight your war. Stop it right now.
The Herzog Tomorrow Foundation provides private school tuition scholarships through Missouri's new Most Scholars program to cover the cost of accessible, high-quality schooling.
Hi, this is Myella Esser with the Herzog Tomorrow Foundation. Our private school tuition scholarships wouldn't be possible without the support of generous Missouri taxpayers. If you're a Missouri taxpayer interested in redirecting your tax dollars and sending them to Missouri students in need of a better education, please contact me at herzogmostscholars.org.
Better education for students creates a better tomorrow for all. Learn how you can help provide a better education for Missouri students at herzogmostscholars.org. That's herzogmostscholars.org. Also, sign up for The Lion, an initiative of the Herzog Foundation that carries articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture. herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com.
All right, spring is here, and you hear that call coming in? That is your yard. It needs some work for spring. Do the landscaping, and that's why Common Sense Rental is stepping up. Incredible deals. You're not going to want to miss this. Mike Ferguson here for Common Sense Rental. By the way, they are your all-new steel dealer in Fenton. They'll sell it to you. They'll rent it to you to save you money as well. Okay, so get ready. Tomorrow, we're talking about this April 25th, the one-day sales event. 15% off all Echo serialized items. And if you're looking for Red Max handheld products, the good stuff, hurry in. 15% off now, right now, to do that. All right. So here's the thing. Whether you are just doing the landscaping on yours, or whether you are a lawn pro, the Common Sense Rental, now a grasshopper mower dealer. Now their stand-on units, absolutely awesome. You've got to check these things out. They're right there on Fenton, right? You can find them, really easy. But if you're looking ahead to Memorial Day, here's a deal that's going to make your neighbors jealous. Okay. Rent for 3 days, but just pay for 1. Yep. Full 3-day rental for the price of 1 day with 8 hours on that unit. Memorial Day weekend is just huge for Common Sense Rental. So be sure to reserve the equipment early. Listen, don't go wasting time hunting for power mower service parts. They've got everything in stock: oil filters, oil, spark plugs, air filters for all the brands. You name it, they've got it. Common Sense Rental, family owned and operated since 2009. These people are so cool. You've got to go check them out. Find them on Gravois Road in Fenton. I mean, literally, you can see them right there off of Gravois, or you can go online, commonsenserental.com. And when I say common sense, that is C as in saving you money, pennies on the dollar. commonsenserental.com.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine in or carry out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
Download the NewsTalk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Step
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
Coming up this week on Jeffco Patriot Radio, David Robertson back on for a huge announcement. Plus, a special bonus guest, local TikToker Kristen Saller, a.k.a. Cray Cray, a.k.a. me.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
On News Talk STL.
Tony Colombo here for my dentist, Dr. Matt Boscia at New Creation Dental Care, the one-stop shop for all your family's dental needs. And Dr. Boscia is always expanding his services, now including the incredible all-on-4 full arch implant procedure, full mouth restoration that can give you back your smile in as little as 1 day. No more suffering with damaged or missing teeth or poor-fitting dentures. You can see some amazing smile makeovers, learn more about the all-on-4 procedure, and see everything Dr. Boscia can do right now at newcreationdentalcare.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hi, it's Randy Tobler here. Pour a big cup of coffee and catch my show every Saturday morning from 6 to 9. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the Morning here on News Talk STL.
All right, here's one of those. It's not just a policy thing or a political thing. It's got people arguing, but this is going to lead to discrimination. We can't go back kind of stuff.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Property rights or enabling discrimination. So Missouri lawmakers are working on a plan basically to return control of property back to landlords.
Okay.
This is in Missouri. And then some of the activists on the left, of course, kind of crying foul. So let's talk about who's right here, who's wrong. By the way, you may have seen this on Fox News yesterday. A Missouri boy finds himself suspended from school because of a social media post. Now, always reserve judgment when you hear that. Like, okay, well, what happened? I mean, they could threaten somebody or whatever the case is.
Did they do something illegal?
No, but the post had nothing to do with the school. So how far are we going to allow public schools to reach into personal lives and have authority over that? We're going to talk to the boy's lawyer at 6:35. He's going to be on the program here. Okay, so get this. The Missouri Senate approves a bill that gives landlords some more control over who they rent to. Maybe I should say gives the control back to them, because you've been a landlord.
I've been a landlord, so I absolutely I'm feeling this one right here. So I'm gonna jump in whenever it strikes me.
So here's what's going on with this. Now can I ask you something like personal about the business that because you're not anymore.
Oh, no.
Did you take Section 8?
Yes,
you did. Okay, so you chose to take that.
Yes.
Okay. Because I've had other friends and people that I've known over the years who've said there are pros and there are cons when it comes to taking Section 8.
Definitely pros and cons.
The pro is that you're always getting your payment.
Guaranteed money.
Guaranteed. The con is that they said pretty much every time you have to basically rebuild the place.
Yes. Although you run that risk on the others too. So, it's 6 1/2 dozen the other.
Okay, so Nick Schroer is among those that got this bill through the Senate. Now, whether it's going to get through the House or not remains to be seen. But basically, there are a number of cities around the state, including Clayton, of all places. It turns out, Columbia is another one, some of the others, that they passed ordinances that make it illegal to, and I'm using air quotes here, discriminate against income sources. So basically, if you're a landlord and I don't want to mess with the government system, I don't want that process. And this a lot of times applied more to apartments than actual houses.
Okay.
But basically, if somebody showed the income, but it was all Section 8 or some sort of government thing,
subsidies,
you are not allowed to say, I don't want that.
Really?
Yeah. And so some cities have that. So this bill that Nick's got through, Senator Schroer's got through, says, no, those are null and void. Landlords have the right to say, I choose not to participate in the government programs. I choose not to take that.
Absolutely should.
I remember for a few years, I was a leasing agent at an apartment complex, which I actually really enjoyed that job. I don't know why.
Strangely.
It was fun. I really liked that job. It was a part-time job. It was one of those things I just did to supplement on the side back in the single parent days.
They used to call those side hustles, or they call those side hustles now.
Right. But the apartment complex I was at, which was kind of a mid-level, it wasn't like luxury apartments, but these were nice apartments. So we did not take any subsidized housing. We didn't take vouchers. We didn't take state programs. We did, we just either you could pay the rent or you could not pay the rent. And I remember, we'd get phone calls and there was a very strict script that we had to follow when somebody asked about, hey, do you take Section 8? Because if you say the wrong thing, you can get sued on discrimination. And there were like people from housing and urban development and activist lawyers who were always trying to nail landlords to the wall over stuff like this. It's a bizarre activism. And so we would simply have to say, no, we actually don't participate in that program.
Right.
Would you like to come see an apartment?
Right.
That sort of thing. But if you don't take Section 8, then obviously they can't come in, but you still invited them in to look at it and apply and stuff like that.
Yes.
So this would make it illegal for basically cities or counties or anybody else to put those rules on landlords. And so the bill passed earlier this week. Ben Brown is quoted in this Missouri Independent article as saying it's a property rights bill. Critics are saying, but you're going to deny people housing and we're going to have more people homeless, or there's not going to be a place, the usual suspects on that. So you've been in that situation.
Yes.
You've chosen to participate in that program. What's your take on this bill that says, no, landlords should have the right to say no?
You should absolutely have the right to say no. At any point, because it's your property, you should have the right to say no to whoever wants to rent from you. That's my feeling about it. It's your property.
By the way, Webster Groves is another city that does this.
One of my biggest pet peeves about the way we deal with landlords is that there's a wide berth that the government gives itself to not recognize their property rights.
Yeah.
On so many levels. And look, I understand there's a consumer protection aspect to this, right? Because you're the people who rent from you are consumers in a different way. But there are so many ways that the government oversteps and basically steps into the role and says, okay, you shall run your, use your property this way or that way or the other thing. So any bill that's going to come through to reduce the power of government over the way landlords are allowed to use their land, I'm generally going to be in favor of it.
So one of the things that the other side is arguing here is they're saying, but you have a right to housing.
No, you don't. Nope. Because here's the thing. Once you have a right to a commodity, then you have a right to someone else's labor. That's slavery. Yeah. Sorry, but that's kind of how that works. If you have you have a right to things that you're born into this world. We all come in naked and screaming into this world, right? And there are certain things we are born with.
The weird part is that later in college, that's when you're having a good fun night.
Right, exactly. That's usually a frat party.
Yeah.
But you come into this world with certain rights, and those are the ones that are kind of they're very esoteric. They're ensconced in our Bill of Rights. They're discussed in those ways. Those are the things you actually have a right to. Anything that is produced on this world, even if it's just a amount of picking up an apple that has fallen by a tree, so somebody owns the tree, somebody actually did the job of getting the apple. That's a commodity. You don't have a right to it.
Yeah.
So look, nobody has a right to housing. Nobody.
Yeah. I mean, and so what's the right role, of government in place? Because we don't want to go back to the days of redlining. I would think most people would say that. So if I've got a property, do I have the right to go, you meet the income requirements I want, but I got a bad feeling about you. It's my house or my apartment. I own it.
I think you should. I think you should. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I want discrimination back.
I want
the tape.
I want it noted that the one who just said that is gay.
Is the black guy.
Is the black guy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, here's what I'm actually saying is I want people to not be able to hide their discrimination anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think one of the things that we got in exchange for making everybody serve everybody else is all the bigots got to hide, and now we give them money unknowingly. That's how I see it. If I walk into a coffee shop and that guy would rather me not be there, and I give him money to serve me coffee with whatever he puts in it,
yeah,
who's harmed but in that situation? I am, because I gave money to somebody who hates me and he's harmed me, right? Yeah. But I don't know it. If he has a freaking sign on the outside of his building that says he doesn't want me there, now I know. And I can tell everybody else that I know.
Exactly what happens in this world of social media.
Exactly. So look, I would much rather all the freaks get to fly their flags freely so that I can see than for them to hide. And it's kind of the same way I think with housing. Now there are also protections though that need to be in place, because if I am going to enter into a contract with you, okay, now there's need to be certain levels, there need to be certain things that are abided by. There, I'm all for there being regulations on how I have to treat you as a customer of mine, as someone who's
because that's contract law.
Yeah, it's basic contract law, exactly. So yes, but I shouldn't be compelled to enter into a contract with you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that the bill that Senator Schroer's put forward, I think this is a good common sense idea because what you've got there, it is a property rights bill. It's not even just a property rights bill. It's not even just it's an apartment or it's a condo or it's a house. It's also their investment. And they should have the ability to manage that the way that they want. Now, again, somebody applies and they've got a contract, and the landlord has contractual obligations to honor that and take care of it and meet the standards that are, that they're in business to do. But it is their property in the end. And that's how you look at it. And I've been a renter far longer than I've been a home owner. And so I understand, the other side of that as well. But the bottom line is it's their property.
Yes.
It's not your property when you're renting. And a lot of people don't look at it that way.
Oh yeah, dealing with people who see my house as theirs was the bane of my existence. One of the reasons why I will never go into, I won't say I will never be a landlord again. I will never be an owner operator. I'll say it that way. I will pay somebody else to deal with those headaches.
There you go. Exactly. All right, just ahead here. Man, a kid gets suspended from his school, 13 years old, for a social media post that had nothing to do with the school. The school's not talking, but his lawyer is. We're going to talk to Dave Roland from the Freedom Center of Missouri right around 6:34 here on 119 94.1 News Talk STL.
Get up, St. Louis. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning. Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. This is News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84 this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday. Not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Dude, this house is perfect. Crumbs everywhere, sticky counters. I've already texted the colony.
Sweet. I'll bring my 500 cousins. This'll be the biggest ant rager of the summer.
Let's party! Wait, what's that sound? Oh, no, it's those trucks with the green wheels. Party's over, man. Party's over.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. We'd love to help you out, so give us a call today to learn more about our 67 introductory offer.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
Well, it appears more and more nations are suddenly rushing to Trump, say, let's make a deal. And we are.
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Hi, this is Susie Moore. Check out my show, Red State Radio, Sunday afternoon at 4, right here on News Talk STL. Now it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
All right. Do some, maybe all, I don't know, public school administrators believe they've got authority over kids' lives outside of school functions? Okay, now the typical conservative or libertarian answer is absolutely not. So is there any nuance for that? Here's what's going on. You may have seen this on Fox News. A Missouri family is fighting back after a boy is suspended for a social media post that was made off campus and that had nothing to do with the school. By the way, we've got Flashback Friday coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, by my count, tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So
tomorrow's Friday?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So send in your 80s bump music requests to Jerome, but you got to get them in this morning here. Okay.
Yeah, we got a lot of rock requests, so if you're feeling like rocking out, feel free to add to the pile.
Yep. So send that in here. All right. We're now joined by Dave Roland from the Freedom Center of Missouri, and Dave is going to be representing the family here. And Dave, my understanding is this is through, you're working with, was it the Goldwater Institute? I think that's also involved in this, but you're going to be the one litigating the case. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And we also, I'm working with Stephanie Bell and Mark Ellinger over in Jefferson City. They've got their own law firm, Ellinger Bell. Fantastic attorneys. I'm thrilled to be working with them on this case.
Okay, so let's lay the groundwork for what's going on here, then we can get into the principles and everything involved in the legalities. So the 13-year-old boy in question here, and this is in southern Missouri, and he takes Dr. Pepper cans and he basically tapes them together. It ends up in the shape of like a rifle, like an AK. And then he puts a picture up on Instagram or whatever the platform was and goes, basically, hey, look, this looks like an AK. And then the school ended up suspending him. So let me just lay the clarifications here. Did he threaten a single person, either in jest, I'm going to caffeinate you with this, or I don't know what, but yeah, I mean, but in all seriousness, I mean, was this done
with shots of Dr. Pepper?
Right. Exactly. I mean,
so the crazy thing about this, Mike, is this was part of a social media trend that was going around back in September. People were taking empty soda cans and gluing them together in different shapes and then posting their creations online. And so this was an art trend, and he took part in it. And just the shape he decided to make was a rifle. And so he had no idea that what he was doing was going to be perceived as a threat. He didn't intend it as a threat. He wasn't holding his creation. He wasn't pointing it at anyone or anything. It was just sitting there. And clearly it's Dr. Pepper cans. It's not an actual weapon. And yet someone decided that they thought that it was threatening, and they contacted the school officials and said, hey, are you going to do something about this? And so the school suspended him. Absolutely crazy that the school thinks that they could construe this as, number one, having anything to do with the school at all, but number two, a threat. But that's exactly what they're trying to argue.
Good morning, Dave. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So it sounds as though they have some rule, I guess, that they would apply here as it pertains to outside activities by students that could be construed in one way or the other. How legal are those just in general?
In general, schools are allowed to take action if something a student does outside of school hours and off of school property has a direct impact on the functioning of the school. So if a student does something away from the school and outside of school hours that ends up disrupting the school day, there can be discipline imposed. There's no evidence here that him posting this picture actually disrupted the school in any way, shape, or form. And actually, the rule that the school said he violated was cyberbullying. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about bullying, I think of a particular person being targeted for some sort of intimidation. And in fact, that's what the school handbook says. Is that bullying is intimidating another student. And of course, this wasn't directed at anybody. And so I think it's an incredible stretch for them to suggest that it was bullying in any way, shape, or form. But when all you've got is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And so the school had to come up with some justification for its suspension, and that's what they settled on. That's part of the lawsuit as well. Not only are we arguing that the school has violated his First Amendment rights by punishing him for displaying this art piece that he created, they've also violated due process by trying to shoehorn his behavior into this definition of a disciplinary violation that really just doesn't fit at all.
We're visiting with Dave Roland from the Freedom Center of Missouri, and the school's not talking to the press. I don't know what contact they're willing to have with you at this point, knowing that the lawsuit is in process right now. But let me play devil's advocate. I'm going to kind of parrot what I've seen in some of the social media responses to this story on Fox that's been picked up in other places. They say, but if the school doesn't step up and do something, and God forbid a school shooting happens, you're going to say, but you should have known here was this thing and you did nothing. Now, in this case, I mean, I think that's a ridiculous argument, but there are people who are making that argument. But if they didn't address it, I don't think personally the school should have any right to any authority outside of any school functions whatsoever. And just because they put something in a handbook doesn't give them that authority, in my view. But in the case where people are saying, but if something else happened, you'd be screaming from the rooftops, you saw this and didn't do something about it. What's the answer to that pushback?
Well, so there are indeed circumstances where students make threats on social media. We actually, one of our other cases deals with a scenario where there were actual threats being made on social media, and our client asked a question about how seriously to take those threats, and she got blamed for spreading fear and causing the school to shut down for a day, even though clearly she wasn't making a threat at all. So, I mean, schools need to be sensitive, but they also need to have the ability to discern between what is threatening and what is not. And they cannot go off half-cocked whenever they see a student say or even express anything about guns. And one of the things that the student's mother in this particular case pointed out is the school officials' own social media posts have pictures of the officials posing with their own guns.
Oh,
That's
boy.
no more threatening. Yeah, like how could you say that it's threatening merely to post an image when in fact they've got pictures of them holding actual guns, whereas this student in this situation wasn't holding or threatening anything. It was clearly a non-functioning piece of art. I think that that's an excellent point. There's got to be a level of common sense involved. If the school actually thinks that a student might be a threat, they can pay extra attention to that student. They can do a little bit of investigation and see, all right, do we think that their behavior indicates that there's actually some sort of a threat here? There was nothing like that in this situation. A lot of schools have adopted kind of a zero tolerance policy where they just drop the hammer on these students in order to try and make a point, not because they actually believe there's a threat. And in fact, in this particular situation, the principal of the school posted online that they were aware that there was no actual threat, and yet they suspended the student anyway.
Wow. I know Gabe's got a follow-up question here. I just want to point out, when you mentioned they can't go off half-cocked, you cannot half-cock a gun made out of Dr. Pepper cans.
Correct, yeah.
All you can do is pull the tab and go, psh. That's it. I just want to point that out.
Exactly. David, now we've heard about similar situations where off-campus activities have been, I guess, overly emphasized by schools, and we've seen similar lawsuits. I thought these kind of things were settled. I thought the law was kind of clear on the limits of school power. Why are we back here?
Great question. So in 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court decided a case involving a cheerleader who was upset that she didn't make the varsity team. And so she had kind of this profanity-laced tirade online outside of school hours, and the school suspended her for it. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. They said schools are not allowed to be 24/7 censors of student expression. The problem is the Supreme Court did leave a little bit of a loophole in the way that they explain themselves. And that's where I got the idea that schools can punish students if what is said or done outside of school hours and off of school property causes a disruption. So now all of these schools, when they want to punish a student, they claim, oh, well, this caused a disruption. My own nephew in Tennessee got suspended for 3 days because he posted a set of memes making fun of his school principal. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a fantastic national law firm, is handling his case because I can't litigate in Tennessee. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens, though. Schools come up with explanations that try and authorize them to take the action that they want to take, even though the Supreme Court's rationale really should have shut that down. And that's why these cases are important. These cases are trying to hammer home the principles that the Supreme Court articulated in the cussing cheerleader case and make sure that schools are now having to abide by them.
Okay, so what is the ideal outcome in whether it's court or a settlement? I mean, I know that you want the suspension addressed, but what is the precedent ideal for the outcome of this case?
So the ideal outcome would be that some common sense emerges in the school district, and they, number one, admit that what they did was wrong and unconstitutional. Number two, they expunge the disciplinary record from the student's report. And then number three, they promise not to do something like that again. That is the ideal solution because it wraps things up clearly and quickly, and it sets a standard that they're not going to be allowed to do this in the future. If they refuse to follow common sense, then we need the courts to emphasize that this violates students' First Amendment rights, it violates their due process rights, and if schools do this sort of thing, there will be consequences in the form of, a court judgment ruling that they have indeed violated the student's rights, that expunges the disciplinary action from the student's record, and then makes clear schools cannot do this again going forward.
Okay, and then where is this in the process right now? Has the lawsuit actually been filed at this point?
Yes, the lawsuit's been filed in state court. Given the attorneys that have been chosen to defend the school, I think they're going to try and remove it to federal court, which actually is not a bad thing at all, because when federal courts make decisions, they affect a lot more people and they tend to be taken more seriously. And so we welcome the opportunity to be in federal court on this. But it's still in early stages. I would hope that we're going to have a decision one way or another from a trial court within the next year and a half.
All right, Dave Roland, Freedom Center, Missouri, but you're working with the Goldwater Institute here. What are the applicable websites and social media people can check you out at? Because I really do hope people check out, especially Freedom Center, Missouri, because of the work that you do pro bono in so many cases here just to fight for freedom. Because we've had you on the show a number of times, and every time you're fighting the good fight on something.
Well, thank you. The Freedom Center's website is mofreedom.org, and the Goldwater Institute's website, I believe, is goldwater.org.
All right, Dave, I'll probably pester you for an update on this from time to time.
Happy to provide it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. We'll talk to you soon. All right, 314-912-1019. This is the kind of stuff that makes me so mad about the public schools. Is add it to the other stuff.
Yeah.
They do not have, but this is when you have the mindset of there are kids too. We're the co-parents. This is where you get the Maryland case where it's like, well, parents, you're not the only ones who get to try to teach these kids, ideologies. We get to compete with you on that. No, you can't take your kids out of the, this stuff. And in Missouri right here, well, somebody's feelings got hurt or they freaked out. So therefore we're going to punish you for something that you put on social media outside of school hours, outside of school property, had nothing to do with the school because we can't. Well, no, you can't. Hopefully Dave and his team wins this one and wins it big.
They're just protecting us from assault beverages.
RFK is behind this one.
Oh, there it is. Yes, exactly. Oh, my goodness. All right. Got some thoughts on that? Let me know. Let's talk here. 1019-94.1 News Talk STL.
Live and local.
Well, here's what's on my mind. I think I got the solution to immigration.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
Springtime often means storms. Don't let a fallen tree ruin your day. Call Hanson's Tree. Look them up at hansonstree.com. Hanson's, your expert insured tree care specialist in the St. Louis region and well beyond. In addition to taking care of all the messes, they can take care of beautiful things as well. Organic mulch, tree trimming, grinding, and land clearing, green waste recycling. Let the expert arborists at Hanson's take care of all the tree care for your home or business. 24/7 at hansonstree.com, hansonstree.com.
Hi, this is St. Louis County Councilman Mark Harder reminding you to check out my new show this weekend.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
That's me. Every Sunday evening at 5, we will explore with you behind-the-scenes stories and information that you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, we talk to decision makers and influencers that have impact on what's going on in St. Louis County and beyond.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
I'll talk to you Sunday night at 5, only on News Talk STL.
Jamie Allman here for O'Fallon Family Floors. Experience the passion. Oh, yeah. You can go in and see the best variety, the best pricing, the best quality, the best personalized service right there off of Highway K in O'Fallon, or you can have the store come to you. Oh, yeah. Brian and his team take great pride in running a fantastic flooring outlet, and you can get their 5-star ratings right there on Google. Just check it out. It's O'Fallon Family Floors, O'FallonFamilyFloors.com.
Spring is in the air, and so are the savings at Johnson Heating and Cooling. Let our family take care of your family's heating and cooling needs. Right now through May 15th, get a complete air conditioning checkup for just $99. Fully licensed and insured with free estimates, and we service all brands. Comfort meets affordability. That's the Johnson Heating and Cooling promise. Call 636-332-4141 or visit johnson-heatingandcooling.com.
This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Dorr. Check out my show, Shall Not Be Infringed, Sunday nights at 9. But now it's more of Mike Ferguson in the Morning on News Talk STL.
All right, big changes coming to Illinois politics. One of the top-ranking Democrats in the country announcing he's retiring. Also, the Blues, man, they need a win tonight. They need a big win tonight. It is 6:51 here. I've got Gabe, Jerome both here. Let's do a news dump, guys.
The Morning News Dump.
Are you joking? Is this a joke?
Listen, folks, the Morning News Dump.
All right, a lot of people are having their say on this case before the Supreme Court regarding the school district in Maryland saying children cannot be opted out of sexually explicit grooming coursework. Now we know where the Trump administration stands on the case. The Supreme Court hearing arguments on Tuesday on whether parents can opt their children out of those lessons on gender and sexuality. And keep in mind, we're talking about kids as young as 5 years old here. The original case from Montgomery County, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., where parents say their kids were being forced to read books on various left-wing social issues, including LGBTQ stuff. Education Secretary Linda McMahon reacted to that on Fox's America's Newsroom.
Well, I'm not sure what the Supreme Court will do. I think it's a little hard to always guess, but they seem certainly to, at least in their comments, be on the side of parents, as I clearly am, and I think the Department of Education is, for parental rights.
And we're expecting a decision from the Supreme Court no later than the end of June on this.
All right.
Okay, Illinois' most powerful politician is retiring. Yeah, Senator Dick Durbin, the second highest ranking Democrat in the U.S. Senate, made that announcement on social media on Wednesday.
The decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term.
And Dick Durbin, who was born in East St. Louis, by the way, he was first elected to the U.S. House in 1982 and then elected to the Senate in 1996. His seat is up for election next year, and look for a wild scramble of some of the most extreme left-wing Democrats in Chicago to jockey for position to become the next U.S. Senator from Illinois, because they're going to assume that whichever Democrat gets that nomination is going to be the next U.S. Senator for life.
We've been talking about what's next for the Democrat Party, as they're trying to develop their bench and kind of bring them to the forefront and what direction they're going to move in after their big loss, and the red shift that has been happening among their electorate. And I'm curious. I'm really curious what that whole scramble is going to look like.
Yeah, you may say that, Dick Durbin would basically be guaranteed reelection. And I think he would have been guaranteed reelection, even though he'd have been 81 years old at that point. And then, you can say, well, win the election. And then when he's ready to retire, you can go ahead and retire. But then what happens is you get an appointment for the U.S. Senate seat for the remainder of the term, which would come from J.B. Pritzker, which you don't want in any way, shape, or form. And even if they decided to call a special election, if depending on when the retirement would be, Democrats aren't guaranteed. Who knows what's going to be like in 2 years or 4 years? So they're better off strategically having him step down early and letting all the Democrats get a long run at it. Hopefully the Republicans run somebody who can put up a really, really good fight.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find out within the next probably month or so on that.
By the way, somebody who can put up a good fight in that area isn't going to be the most pure conservative. So be prepared for that also.
All right. Our friends at the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise are hosting an interesting discussion tonight. You can be a part of it. Economist Dr. Nicholas Zebarth from Mizzou is presenting what's called the most beautiful word in the dictionary, tariffs. That's the title, obviously ripping from one of Donald Trump's statements.
Yeah.
It's happening at Harmon Hall on Lindenwood University's campus. Doors open at 5:45. Tickets are free, and you can attend in person or you can get your sort of ticket, and they'll send you a link if you'd rather watch it at home from anywhere. There's more information on our website for that. Speaking of tariffs, 12 states, including Illinois, are suing the Trump administration over his deployment of tariffs. The attorneys general of the states filed the action in the United States Court of International Trade. What they're arguing is that the tariffs actually require congressional approval, and the president doesn't have the authority to just layer on tariffs and carve outs and basically have unilateral authority. That's what the argument is. All the 12 states involved are the suspects you would think, the deep blue states on there.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to see what the court comes up with on that, what the arguments are on that.
I'm curious.
All right. Big night for the Blues tonight. They're down 2-0 in the playoffs. So their back's not against the wall, but it's nearing the wall.
Yeah. Very close to the wall.
Yep.
Right now.
Game 3 of the series with Winnipeg is tonight at Enterprise Center. This is the NHL's late game tonight. That is an 8:30 start time, meaning there's a lot of people who are going to be calling in to work tomorrow. ESPN2 and FanDuel both carrying the game. This is a best of 7 series. So this isn't do or die, but it's do or be in a really bad spot. But still, I'm just thrilled that the Blues made it to the playoffs this year. The Cardinals end up losing their series with the Braves. Yesterday's final score in Atlanta was 4-1. Today's a travel day for the team. And the Birds are going to be back at home for a series with the Brewers on Friday. Here's the thing, guys. We are 25 games into the season. We got a 162 game season. So we're about 15% of the way through the season at this point. So another week or so, we'll be nearly 20% of the season over. 25 games into the season, and the Cardinals are tied with the Pirates for last place in the division. Both teams are already 5.5 games back. The division leader is the team that shall not be named from Chicago. If Stell's listing, he's doing a happy dance. Right?
Yeah, he sure is.
I'm just saying. Because he comes in, he wore that damn hat again the other day.
I sure did.
Let's get him.
I almost threw something at him. I'm just saying.
We love you, Stell.
Mike Ferguson here. Retirement should be a time you can relax. No more stress from work. But there's one thing you can't forget about when retiring. That's your money. Do you have enough saved to fund your income for life and keep up with inflation? How will you claim your Social Security benefits? And what about long-term care? The ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel is here to help answer all of these questions. You can hear their latest views on the markets and investing during On the Money, hosted by Stifel financial advisors Bob Stockdale and Eric Robert, every Saturday morning at 9, right here on News Talk STL. They can help you get organized, guide you through critical retirement decisions, and create an investment portfolio designed around your needs. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com. Or call 636-695-2650, 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
This is Tony Colombo, and my favorite Capriati sandwich is the cheesesteak made with American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms, and you have to include a side of their amazing fries. I love Capriati's, and you will too.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Russia has unleashed a deadly attack on Ukraine's capital, Kiev. A drone and missile strike left at least 9 people dead, more than 70 others injured. Pakistan and India enacting a series of retaliatory measures against each other and follows a deadly attack by gunmen in Kashmir that left 26 people, mostly tourists, dead. Hoping to derail President Trump's tariffs, a dozen Democratic-led states suing the administration in the U.S. Court of International Trade. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett says while Trump trade policies may hurt in the short run, if given a chance, they will quickly yield positive results for American workers.
President Trump gave us 3% GDP growth and $6,500 in the first 3 years of his term in increased real wages, adjusted for inflation. Real wages went down under Joe Biden. And I can tell you right now that we're going to have more than 3% growth over these 4 years and more than $6,500 in real wage growth.
Hassett speaking with the Salem Radio Network. More than 24 illegal immigrants, alleged gang members, face an array of federal charges in New York City.
Mayor Eric Adams and border czar Tom Homan say 29 people connected to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Agua face an array of charges, including racketeering, weapons, and sex trafficking. Mayor Adams says the city has been looking into gang activities since the illegal immigrant attack on NYPD officers in Times Square last year.
Correspondent Tasha Stevens. For a second day, the body of Pope Francis lies in state in St. Peter's Basilica. The Vatican estimates that so far 50,000 people have filed past the simple wooden coffin. So many mourners that the Vatican kept the doors open all night. On Wall Street this morning, Dow futures down 214 points. NASDAQ futures off 50 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Heard me talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF for Relief Factor.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
Thanks.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84. this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday, not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Shane.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Experience the exhilarating atmosphere of a Cardinals game. Join the sea of red in the wave around the stadium. Feel the rush of excitement as a home run lights up the sky with fireworks, bringing the whole ballpark to their feet. Nothing beats the thrill of watching the Cards get the W with the final out at the plate. It's more than a game. It's an experience. Visit Cardinals.com for tickets and info. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
There is no better way to enjoy America's favorite pastime than cheering on the Cardinals with your family at Busch Stadium. From the thrill of watching the game to the kid-friendly activities, food, and fun, the ballpark has it all. Make magical memories as you cheer together for every home run, double play, and Cards win. Your family's summer tradition starts here at Busch Stadium. Grab your tickets today at Cardinals.com. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Mike Ferguson,
You play ball like a girl!
Gabe Pfeiffer,
I triple thought Darian!
Get up! Get up! Can't you hear the alarm?
Get up, St. Louis.
So it's time to get out of bed. Pour yourself the greatest cup of Kofifi the world has ever seen. Rise up with one voice. Drain the swamp and take back our country. Today's the day we're going to do it, and it's time to do it right now. Believe me.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up! Get up! This is your...
All right. The longest serving U.S. Senator in Illinois' history is retiring. So the question then is, what's next? This is a pretty big deal in politics, especially in the power structure. In Illinois Democratic politics, which is basically running the entire show. By the way, did you see those reports about the government possibly offering baby bonuses for having children?
Yeah.
You know, the first I saw them and people were trying to make it into something that it wasn't. And even the report said, well, the president hasn't actually said they're considering it. Well, now they're saying that they're considering it. And the Speaker of the House said, oh, I like the idea. The president says he likes that idea. So with 720, let's talk about whether or not we should even be considering the government giving people money to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually more to the story than just the $5,000 here. We'll get to that right around 720. I'm Mike Ferguson. Got Gabe Pfeiffer here. Got producer Jerome here, now joined by Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints. And if you haven't checked out Wirepoints, that's a really good, I get a daily email from them, a daily update on what's happening in Illinois news and in Illinois politics. And so I get it every day from Wirepoints. And Ted, good to chat with you. Well, the announcement came yesterday. Dick Durbin puts it on social media. Here's the meat of what he had to say on social media.
The decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term.
All right, so Ted, we'll get into who wants to pick up that torch or who may be in line to pick up that torch here in a minute. But Dick Durbin is the second highest ranking United States Senator of the Democrats. I would say the most powerful politician from Illinois right now. This is kind of a big deal to the whole structure, although it can't be a huge surprise. I mean, the guy's 80.
Well, it's a big deal because it's going to reorient everything that goes on in politics right now in Illinois. And yeah, he's been there a long time. So he's the establishment. I mean, if you think about it, he's been around almost as long, if you include his congressional run, his House run or House tenure, he's as long as Madigan. So, he along with Madigan have been big players in everything that's gone on in Illinois. And, that matters for a lot of reasons, in particular, when you look at where Illinois stands right now in the rankings of the rest of the country. It's not a good record when you just look at where Illinois stands today.
Morning, Ted. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So who's on deck? Who are the people who are going to be vying? Because we know this. I mean, in any open seat that's been held for a long time, it's going to be quite the scrum to fill that seat. So who are the people who are going to be involved in that fight?
Well, it's interesting, right? Not just because he's stepping down, but Schakowsky's stepping down. Long-term Congress, and you've got the governor thinking about running for president. So it's big movements across everything, and so that has people thinking about, well, do I wait for this? Do I wait for that? Well, of course, the big names are Stratton. That Juliana Stratton. That's Pritzker's lieutenant governor. They've kind of already signaled her for that. Raja Krishnamurthy is the U.S. Representative from the 8th District, and he's, of course, a top name for that. And he kind of fits that same mold of a Durbin, cool, calm, collected kind of thing. You got Lauren Underwood. I mean, it's a long list of people who may run. I mean, you got Rahm Emanuel's name being thrown out there. I don't think he would do this, but his name's being thrown out there, and so is the governor's, because if the governor wants to run for president, he may want to do it out of a Senate slot rather than either being governor or sitting out his third term and run as a citizen. So we'll see.
See, that's what I was wondering. Is I know this is going to be a frenzy, Ted, but I would think that if Pritzker decided that he wanted the seat, that he would have to be considered the early front runner, just because the Democratic Party, as much as we can't stand him on the conservative side, they're very loyal to him, and he would probably clear the field pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, I would think so too, given all the money he has, right? I mean, he can fund it all by himself, so that would be true. But then again, he's got to think about what that means. Does he want to do it via the Senate? There's pros and cons to him doing that, but we'll see. But what's fascinating to me, the big question is what changes from a policy perspective and from where Illinois is headed perspective. And I don't see much change between all of them. They're all cut from the same mold, and I don't see any real champions that will take Illinois out of the mess that it's in.
Yeah, we're visiting with Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints, and of course the news that just broke, the second highest ranking Democrat in the U.S. Senate, Dick Durbin, announcing he's not running for re-election. And of course, to those of us who are, in the downstate Illinois area, I mean, you've got Chicago, as you know, and you guys do a really great job of covering, basically Springfield and Chicago than the rest of downstate Illinois. There's an alienation that's felt by a lot of downstate Illinois. Is there any chance at this point that other parts of the state, especially the more centrist or conservative side, but even some of the center left Democrats, those old blue collar Democrats in Illinois, is there some point that they say maybe now we can be heard, or is it just going to be the hard fringe far left, like the Durbins, like the Pritzkers, like the Strattons, who are going to keep running the show?
Well, I think the big first question is, are there any let's call them conservative Democrats left? I don't think there are any. I think they're just left the same crowd that's been competing, that's pushing further and further left, and it's amazing. I mean, if you think about since 1970, I think it was 1978 or 1979 when Durbin first started, there used to be 22 congressional seats in the House for Illinois. Now we're down to 17 and headed towards 15 based on population. So we've just lost our influence, our power. And then you look at the stats on the pension debts in those whatever that is, 40, 50 years. Out-migration of Illinois, highest property taxes, our crime has been through the roof. It's a really sad story for Illinois, and yet if you look at that list that we talked about, they're all the same people that support that same kind of decarceration, decriminalize, high tax, and quite woke agenda. So it's tough, and it's tough for of thinking that somebody else who opposes those things can make it to the top. At least right now, it's hard to see that, even though we saw Trump, get 44% of the vote in Illinois this time around. So there is some dissatisfaction. The question is, can people connect the dots between those failed policies and all these Democrats that have run the state for so long?
We are visiting with Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints, and you can find more at wirepoints.org. I recommend that people get the newsletter that I get every day. I find it really informative. Ted, you guys do a really nice job with that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Now, one of the things, though, is when somebody is that high ranking in the U.S. Senate, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of bacon being able to bring back. What could be the effect on Illinois' influence in Washington, D.C., because now you're going to have Tammy Duckworth as the senior U.S. senator, and then whoever wins the next election being the junior senator. But Dick Durbin has had a tremendous amount, even in the minority in the Senate, a lot of influence and a lot of power.
Well, I think it might be better that we have less influence and less power, right? Because, you know, he was, I mean, think about it, you know, he was very much, you know, opening up, he's good for positive or supportive of opening up immigration, right? I mean, he's a big DREAM Act supporter, and of course, as number two, was very supportive of what's happened in the immigration policy under Biden. You know, he's attacked guns, he's attacked what do you call it? He supported Obamacare, so you know, booming costs in healthcare. He's behind all those things that have hurt the average Illinoisan and average American. So I see it as I wish there was a chance to push him out. I mean, there will be some Republican candidates. We didn't mention them.
Yeah.
You know, one name thrown around is Darren LaHood. I don't know if he'll do it, but you're going to need some pretty credible candidates who can spark some kind of change, because we can keep doing the same things. But look, you know, we reelected Madigan over and over and over again. We reelected Durbin over and over again, and look where Illinois is in any state ranking on anything that matters. We're 48th, 49th, or 50th. So you would think that our voters would change that, but they've been rewarding bad results with the same people getting elected over and over.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, as we just got a minute or two left here, Ted, is what kind of Republican can put up a credible fight, and do the Republicans realistically have a chance to compete for the seat? I mean, is it possible, or are you looking for basically a standard bearer for everybody else in 2026?
Well, you know, I want to say that it's possible. I mean, there's people out there who could run good campaigns, I believe. But you've got to run them on the things that matter. You know, people, you know, we get the highest. And again, you know, I know this is a Senate, so it's not really running on Illinois issues. But, you know, when you're talking about an Illinois senator, they have to be champions for Illinois and what's happening here. And, you know, you just look at East St. Louis and you got to wonder, you know, here you have the second most powerful guy in Congress, and look at East St. Louis. It hasn't improved on crime and on education and the things like poverty, right? Still 35% poverty. You know, we got to find people who champion the little guy in Illinois. And I don't mean the little guy in the woke terms. I mean the little guy in terms of just good old fashioned security, you know, public safety, education, you know, affordable taxes and decent jobs. And we've lost our ability to do that. So whoever we think about needs to champion those things and persuade ordinary people that, man, the way we've been doing things for the last 50 years is the wrong way. And we got to flip that upside down.
All right. Ted Dabrowski from Wirepoints. It's Wirepoints. It's .org, right? I got that right?
.org, yeah.
Yeah, wirepoints.org. I recommend people go there, and I personally get the daily newsletter. I recommend other people doing that as well here. So, Ted, that's been really helpful, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you,
sir.
guys. Take care.
All right. 314-912-1019. You know, like you said earlier, I mean, who's the kind of Republican who's going to be able to compete for that seat?
Yeah.
And is it the kind of Republican that Republicans will tolerate?
Right. Especially now that, you know, the purity tests are definitely on the table. We've seen in a lot of cases, but should we be okay with taking what we can get?
Good question. All right. 314-912-1019. And should the government be considering baby bonuses, as in cash money? You want this money? Have a baby. You're doing the
doing the money.
Make it rain.
Making it rain.
Make it rain. How do you make it rain?
rain?
Have a baby. Is this what government should be doing? Let's talk about that around 7:20.
Get up, can't you hear the alarm? Get up, this is your cousin.
The Allman Report.
Hey, folks, the grandson of JFK is going nuts over Trump. We'll talk about that, plus Jim Carafano. It's the Allman Report.
Jamie Allman. Live and local, weekdays at noon on News Talk STL.
Looking for an underwater adventure or a scaly new friend? Dive into Tropical World Pets on Watson Road. For 32 years, this family-owned wonderland has been St. Louis's go-to destination for all things aquatic and reptilian. With over 7,000 square feet of aquariums, we're home to the area's largest selection of freshwater fish, including rare cichlids you won't find anywhere else. But that's not all. We've got tarantulas, snakes, and lizards galore. Tropical World Pets, 314-849-4020, or visit twpstl.com.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC.
Hey, St. Louis, summer's on its way, and if your AC isn't ready, you could be in for a long, sweaty ride. This is Chris Arps, and before you crank up that air conditioner, you need to call my friends over at Elite Comfort Experts. Right now, they're offering an AC performance evaluation for just $79. Yeah, $79 get you a full system check from your hometown comfort experts. No gimmicks, just guarantees. Call Elite Comfort Experts at 636-887-0971. Tell them Chris Arps sent you, or visit EliteComfortExperts.com.
Serenity Wealth Now with Chris Cooper.
Hey there, Chris Cooper here, Serenity Wealth Management. Now, have you ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes in Washington and how it affects local rules and regulations taking place right here in the state of Missouri? This weekend, I've got a special guest joining us from D.C., political insider and lobbyist Carl Stark, joining us and talking a little bit about what happens and how it affects folks right here in the state of Missouri.
Sunday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC. Agree.
I think conservatives have it wrong.
Or disagree.
I couldn't agree with you more.
The conversation happens here.
I agree with you on Trump. I'm shaking my head. I'm one of your liberal Democratic listeners, and I don't get why any of this even matters.
Because your voice matters.
Everybody told him he couldn't do it, and then he did do it. That's what you got to do. You got to play hardball.
I want to hear what people are thinking and be able to talk about it.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
You know, they're literally taking the Constitution and putting it in a paper shredder.
News Talk STL.
Hey, this is Vince Colonnese. I'll talk to you tonight at 8. But now back to the Mike Ferguson in the Morning Show on News Talk STL.
Okay, we know, I think we've even mentioned this in passing, Gabe. We have a declining fertility rate in this country, meaning that we're just not having that many babies anymore compared to previous generations.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we outsourced all that to Elon Musk.
So true.
He's got this one, guys. Just step back and let him do his thing.
So true.
He's been working hard for us.
Yeah, in a variety of ways.
Okay, flag that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's actually, when you look at long term, that's actually got big economic and cultural consequences.
Massive.
I mean, let me just ask her. Okay, you come from a big family.
Yes.
You're one of how many?
8 total.
8 total.
I'm number 7.
You're number 7 of 8. Jerome, how many siblings do you have?
I've got a younger brother, an older half brother, but my cousins numer all over Illinois.
Right. Okay. So, but 2 siblings, direct siblings. Yeah.
I grew up with my younger brother. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I'm one of 2. I'm the oldest. I'm the older of 2. But a couple generations ago, 4, 5, 6 kids was pretty normal.
That's easily.
A generation ago, 3, 4 kids was normal. Now, maybe 1. Maybe 2,
maybe 1. Yeah.
Because, people just have different priorities, and families and kids is not one of them. And so should the government be offering incentives to have babies? This is interesting. It's 7:21 right now. Speaking of which, guess what? Mother's Day is coming up, and News Talk STL has a great Mother's Day giveaway. Go to newstalkstl.com and you can register. You do not have to be the mom to register. You can register and then give the whatever you win, if you win, to your mom as well. All kinds of great businesses are basically giving us gift baskets and gift bags to give away. There's a lot of them. So register at newstalkstl.com.
Right. Speaking of families and
That's
children,
right.
Your mom gave you life. The least you could do is register for a dang basket.
That's right. Could be some jewelry. Could be, whatever. Okay. So there were reports earlier in the week, and I actually thought about bringing this story up earlier, but the original reports I saw, is Trump administration considering $5,000 baby bonuses for women to have kids? And then I read the stories, and then about the bottom, it says, well, there's no confirmation that the president's even thinking about it. I'm like, well, then why run the story? Well, now they're saying, because apparently, people in the White House and in Congress have responded to it. And the president says, oh, I kind of like that idea. The Speaker of the House goes, yeah, we're pro-life. We wanted to support, more, we support life and more children. So essentially what's being discussed here. And again, there's been nothing proposed. There's been nothing in writing.
Right. We don't have a plan in place to discuss. This is all just generalities that we're kind of throwing around.
So I looked at the Wall Street Journal story on this here. It says a $5,000 baby bonus is one of several proposals the White House is considering amid declining birth rates in the U.S. Now, of course, they're saying according to multiple outlets. So basically they're writing about the other news articles on this. So the $5,000 would be given to every American mother after giving birth, with President Donald Trump saying the concept sounded, quote, like a good idea to me when he was asked about it this week. And the bonus could also possibly be in the form of a newborn supplement to existing child tax credits. That's according to the New York Times. So there's no final proposal. But they're looking at, okay, do we add, for instance, $5,000 worth of tax credits? You have a baby. There's always a deduction because you have another dependent.
Right.
My birthday is literally December 31st.
Right.
I used to tease my dad. You were doing the reverse Heimlich on mom just to get the tax credit, weren't you?
It's like, come on, baby.
He never liked that joke.
No, your dad, the Baptist preacher,
I
didn't
know.
like the implication that he forced his wife to have a child to get the tax credit.
Right.
He didn't like that.
He never thought it was funny. To this day, I think it's hilarious.
It is.
My
It is,
mom
actually.
in meets in the middle just rolled her eyes. Let me say. So, but basically what you've got here is, okay, so there's a proposal that's, among there's like, well, we could add, in addition to just the dependent, year one, $5,000, write that off, new baby tax credit.
Right.
But there's others who are saying, no, have the Treasury send them a check for $5,000.
Man.
As an incentive to have kids. And let me tell you something. If you're going to have a baby because you want to get your hands on $5,000,
You shouldn't have a baby.
you should not be having a baby.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
it's going to cost a whole lot more than $5,000 to have a baby.
Well, and a baby is more than money.
Yeah.
So look, okay. I think right now, I like the fact that the government is recognizing that we are in crisis.
Okay, let's start there.
The declining birth rate is actually a serious issue. We're kind of just starting on this journey, but countries like Japan and South Korea are both in the midst of theirs. Like it's such a crisis that it's being written into their entertainment. They talk about the declining birth rate. The pushing of these the romances and everything like that. You keep seeing all these K-dramas and whatnot. That's an attempt to reinvigorate the declining birth. I am not even joking. There is a government. There's a government effort to do this because when you do the demographic analysis of what the future of your country looks like, if you have a smaller population than you have, incoming than you have going out, the whole thing collapses. Now, I mean, look. I know Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, but to be fair, countries are essentially gigantic Ponzi schemes. Like it only works if there are more people in it, later producing than there are, people taking, which happens when you get older. It's like you can't work anymore. So look, I'm glad the government is treating this as a serious issue. Right now, we're at the spitballing phase. It's
Yes,
like, okay,
true.
all ideas are welcome. Let's just throw it out there, even if it sounds kind of dumb, sounds kind of weird. We haven't worked out the details yet. So I mean, okay, fine.
Can I pause you just for a second?
Please.
I just want to address something on Rumble. Okay, righty, right.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we are not going to call this bang for buck. Okay.
No. It's the best bang for your buck.
I'm just saying.
The tagline's right there.
I just want to point.
It is right there.
No, righty. No. Maybe. Anyway, sorry. I just felt that needed to
because we're in the spitball phase. So yeah, there are no bad ideas except for that one. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's actually hilarious. But just one thing I do want to say is we need something. I think there is a role for the government to play here in fixing. I don't want to say fixing, but there's no other word that comes to mind. Fixing the problem we have in our society where we don't value the family, we don't value the creation of life. There are things like you said, other priorities that people have right now. But the thing is, the government only has a couple of tools, and they're terrible.
Yeah, and I think there's not really a huge incentive right now to get birth rates back up, just from my generation standpoint.
Oh, yeah. Because it's targeted at your generation.
And on the one hand, $5,000 sounds kind of nice, but on the other hand, it's if you are in another nation, if you're in India, for example, you have 5 kids and you're dirt poor, then your reward sometimes is you get to go to a Western nation and improve your lot in life. But if you're in America and you have a bunch of kids you can't afford, you're just broke in America. So, one of the stream commenters mentioned about adoption and foster children. I think that's sort of the mindset is we already have a lot of kids. I know the birth rate's declining, but we already have a lot of parentless children out there. Why is there not more of an incentive to give them homes? Why are we so focused on just paying people basically to birth out new voters, essentially, or new workforce?
Yes, it's really more the workforce.
Absolutely,
than
yes,
it is anything else.
It is. It is.
It is the workforce. There are. I mean, most states have some kind of like tax credit or subsidy.
Yeah,
at least for the first X number of years, depending on the state. So there's a little bit there, but not probably enough to cover. The reality is that having kids is expensive. It's kind of supposed to be. I mean, there's nothing wrong inherently with that. Rearing kids is work and it's expensive, but that's what you sign up. That means that's what you do when you have families. That's what you work for, to provide for a family. And in this case right here, I don't have an issue with saying, you know what, let's increase the tax credit. Obviously, until a kid's done with college, basically they're a dependent. You can write them, there's a deduction for dependents, but saying, you know what, on that first year or 2 years or whatever, there's an additional tax. I have a weird feeling about the government saying, we're going to send you a check for having a baby.
Right.
Just for the simple reason that the unintended consequences.
Yes.
And I know that libertarians throw that out all the time.
Well, it's important.
Right. Because
and it's real.
What I don't want is somebody, because we're talking about what's being proposed here, what's even considered. There's nothing in writing. But what's being considered is you have a baby, here's $5,000 check.
No questions asked.
Okay. So
that's terrible.
Are we going to be incentivizing the people who basically
should
are economic parasites for the rest of us already?
Absolutely. That's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, you're already on Section 8, you're already on food stamps, you're already on subsidized this, that, and the other. We're already paying for your health care. Here's a $5,000 incentive when you don't pay for the rest of the stuff anyway.
I'm gonna throw out some dark truth here that people aren't gonna like, maybe. The wrong people are having children right now.
Yeah.
Idiocracy.
Yes. Look, and here's the thing. I don't think this is an economic problem. Ultimately, this is not an economic problem because the richest, most successful people, the families that form, the married couple, they're both high-powered individual, high intellect. They're both doing gangbusters economically. They could afford a dozen kids if they wanted. They might have one.
Right.
That's the problem. And of course, the lady living on Section 8, she's got 4 baby daddies. Look, I'm not stereotyping. I have a person in mind in my head right now. They used to rent for me from Section 8, 4 baby daddies, 6 kids. 6 kids. Okay. She's not doing good. Those kids are not doing good.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of the comments here that we're getting really interesting stuff here. And I know we've got to get to an information segment here. But for instance, Rizon, people don't want to bring children into this world anymore. My son says that a lot. I've heard that a lot.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
It goes on to say, if we fix our country and society, people will be more willing. Corporeal Being says our society tells women to spend their most fertile years in college and building their career. That's true. That's a huge part of it.
That's much bigger than and I say, to the first comment about the not wanting to bring children into this world, stop being a pussy.
Oh wow.
I am not even playing because look, people were bringing children into the world when the world was absolute crap.
Yeah.
Okay, in the middle of wars, famine. Look, stop it. Stop being so namby-pamby's like, oh no, the wrong people are in office. I don't want to bring people into the world. Come on. And that's besides the fact that children are a freaking blessing. Have you had a tiny little face hold your tiny little hand hold your face and say I love you before? that is dude, that is worth all of the struggle.
Amy says, I'm old fashioned, but it would be nice to incentivize families somehow so one parent could stay home.
It would be nice if we could go back then.
I would love if we could go back there, but and then so it's interesting because all of these different causes for the problem are addressable.
Yeah.
But what's the right solution? And is government that solution, or should things like other foundations of a community and society, like churches, nonprofits? I mean, it's interesting that in pop culture, like in South Korea, they're like, hey, find your person and get busy.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's essentially what they're saying.
Well, shifting to something we have no shortage of is the pains after illegals cause death, a tragedy that rips the heart in so many ways. Coming up with Larry Connor's commentary.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84 this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday. Not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill.
Larry Connor's commentary, brought to you by Vincent's Jewelers, offering a wide selection of jewelry, including lab-grown diamonds, affordable earrings, bracelets, necklaces, and rings, up to 75% off their natural counterparts. Visit VincentsJewelers.com. This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
This is a story of a tragedy that could have been avoided. Date November 2021. A 43-year-old man driving drunk at a speed of 100 miles an hour in Orange County, California, crashed in a car with a young couple teenagers. Both were killed, either in the accident or they were burned alive. 2022, the man is convicted of vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. He gets a sentence of 10 years, which that in itself I find hard to believe. But he's sentenced to 10 years. Now, before this tragedy, this guy, who wasn't illegal, had multiple felonies on his record already, had already been deported 3 different times and kept coming back into the States. And then this last time, he was held and charged after killing 2 teenagers. Now they're talking about letting him out of his 10-year term 4 to 5 years early. The father of the young girl says, it's disgusting. And I have not even changed anything in my daughter's room since her death.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Craving the freshest in town? Anthony's Produce is your daily destination for nature's finest. Start your day with warm, fresh baked Fazio's bread delivered daily. Browse our rainbow of quality fruits and vegetables, always fresh, always delicious. Hosting an event? Let us create stunning fruit bouquets and veggie trays, or treat someone special to our chocolate-covered strawberries. We proudly stock hundreds of locally made products, and yes, we even have seasoned firewood. Anthony's Produce opens 7 days a week, 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. at 701 Jungerman Road or anthonysproduce.com.
Attention Chesterfield, your beverage destination has arrived. Introducing the all-new Save On Liquor and Wine Chesterfield, a massive 30,000 square foot paradise. Step inside our walk-in humidor featuring the largest selection of premium cigars anywhere. From craft beers to fine wines, top-shelf liquors to trendy spritzers. We got it. Competitive prices, knowledgeable staff, and an unbeatable selection. Visit the new Chesterfield Airport Road location today, one of our many stores across Missouri and Illinois, or at saveonliquor.com.
Hungry for the best steak you'll ever have? Head to the heart of Moscow Mills and discover Harry J's, a local landmark and family-owned steakhouse, serving up excellence since '98. From mouth-watering appetizers to decadent desserts, Harry J's has something for everyone. Enjoy our extensive bar selection while soaking in our friendly family atmosphere. Whether dine-in or carry-out, your meal is prepared to perfection. Make the drive to 300 Main Street and treat yourself to a taste of Moscow Mills' finest. Harry J's, more than a steakhouse. We're a tradition.
Duchesne High School in St. Charles, Missouri offers students a faith-based Catholic education and a community they'll be part of for a lifetime. Our student-centered courses and collaborative learning techniques prepare students for college and work beyond the classroom. Our new aviation and sports media programs are the latest additions to our ever-expanding curriculum. Go to duchenne.hs.org to check out our summer camps, purchase tickets for our 2025 Dream Raffle, or schedule a tour.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new NewsTalk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Hi, this is Susie Moore. Check out my show, Red State Radio, Sunday afternoon at 4, right here on News Talk STL. Now it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
All right, it is the debate of right now, Donald Trump's tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
You've got so many layers of this. We know that it's going to affect people in one way or another. Maybe it affects your job if you work in manufacturing or you work in even sales or construction or anything like that. Is it a matter of economic disaster or short-term pain for long-term gain, as we're hearing a lot of people argue right now? So there's a way for you to be part of that conversation and learn something about it in the process tonight. By the way, News Talk STL's Flashback Friday tomorrow. Get your 80s bump music requests sent in, but you got to do that this morning for Jerome to get through the list and vet and pick out the ones that's going to go in. So email him or send us a suggestion on social media. All right, we're joined now by Grant Black from the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise. And Grant, tonight's event, the title just cracks me up because I mean it's obviously ripped from something Donald Trump said. The most beautiful word in the dictionary, tariffs. Some people think it is, some people think it's not. I mean, we've got lawsuits now filed by states. We've got economists weighing in. We've got policy. We've got people saying, well, it's just leverage. And so we've got all these different perspectives that it's easy for people to be confused about how this actually affects us. And that's kind of the point of having the event tonight, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is something we have been planning for quite a while. When this started to merge early in the year, we just knew this was a topic people didn't really understand, don't hear too much about most of the time. And so this seemed like a great opportunity to try to provide some objective insight into a topic that a lot of people just don't know too much about.
So, Gabe Fiver here, by the way. So how are we going to, how should we approach the question of tariffs? I think a lot of people, are coming at it almost purely from a political standpoint, an ideological standpoint, where they just say, well, my team says this, and therefore I'm going to say that. How should we as individuals be looking at the tariff question?
Well, I think it's complicated. I think one thing is that they've always been there. So sometimes I think in this current debate, you sort of feel like, it's all brand new and emerging on the scene and something that's sort of not been done much. But it's been around a long time, basically since the founding of the country. We've had them. We've always been having them. Obviously, these are big changes to the levels of them. But I think trying to understand how is a policy like this, tariffs or other kind of trade protections, relevant to a country? Why might people think they're beneficial? Why might we be concerned about them? I think particularly if people are interested in sort of the benefits of free trade and what that can bring to a nation, there's always winners and losers with everything. And so trying to understand who sort of the winners may be, who are the losers under policies like these, and why they might be being used outside of just sort of a revenue generator, I think are important questions to think about.
Okay, so tonight what's going to happen is you've got the event. The tickets are free. You've got obviously Dr. Nicholas and Zebarth. Did I say his name right? Is it Zebarth or Zebarth?
That's right, Zebarth.
Yeah, Zebarth. So Dr. Nicholas Zebarth, economist from Mizzou, is going to be making the presentation. So I don't know where he stands, whether he's pro or anti on this. Is this something that is just simply to promote one opinion on tariffs or not? Or is this going to be more of a discussion once he makes this presentation? Because I imagine some people are going to say, well, I'm interested, but I don't want to go if I'm going to hear something that I disagree with. And that's unfortunately what we hear way too much of when things like this are offered.
Yeah, I think this is meant to be an objective look. Hearing what we think from an economic standpoint, could be the pros and cons of policies like these, what we've seen historically in terms of the use of policies like these, and what we might be able to predict and anticipate about potential effects of these current policies, particularly given, the significant increase in the level of and breadth of the tariffs being applied. And so there'll be a time for Q&A. So we've been gathering questions already. And so this is a place in part to have some conversation. It's not about trying to share a particular view. It's really trying to share, hey, what do we think we understand about, from economic standpoint, what the role of tariffs are and sort of what their pros and cons are. So I think there's something for everyone to learn tonight.
Grant, are you saying that you want people to actually show up and be willing to hear something that challenges their already are you that challenges them? I mean, come on, we don't do that in America. We're tribal now.
That's definitely true. This is meant to be something, you how to think from the other side, to try to understand other perspectives, and have a good dialogue about it. And that is something that's been challenging in more recent times, and that's what we're trying to pull off tonight, though.
And your expectations of the audience isn't that they all come with their own economic degrees, right? This is going to be an accessible event.
Yes, this is meant to be accessible. This is geared to just the, average person out there in the general public. So this is not meant to be a high level, academic talk or anything like that. This is for real people.
Yeah, tell me
that are trying to make sense out of, what's happening and how it might affect their lives.
Yeah, I was going to say, the follow up on that as to why that's important. I mean, because somebody may say, I just go to work. I've got my kid's soccer game and I've got things I need to do. Why is it important to engage in something like this? Because I think I'm glad that Gabe asked that question, because a lot of people think, oh, it's on a university campus. It's some economist. It's going to be over my head. And clearly it's not. This is designed for us, normal mortal people here. But why is it important to have these things? Because these tickets are free. I just put the link on the Rumble chat box. And Gabe, let's put it up on the other social media platforms as well. Mm-hmm. Tickets are free. And also people can watch it at home online if they don't want to go into St. Charles. But why is it important to have these things that are open to everybody and for people to come with questions? They may agree with what they hear. They may disagree, but why is it important to even have these in the first place? Because we get so caught up in the Republican versus Democrat and president versus Congress kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think people need to be informed. You need to make decisions, for yourself. You need to try to understand how, policies and actions taken by those, in control in, the political realm influence your life, and how you can help shape those things through the voice that you have, the votes that you cast. That's crucial. You need to be a well-informed citizen and understand how these things are impacting your life. These aren't distant things. These are things that impact you, your community, the businesses around you, the people around you. And so it's important coming out. And so, we have events ongoing trying to address timely issues, like this in an objective way that we help, informs people.
All right. And I've been to a number of these, and they really are. I mean, I know a lot of people get scared away by the academics of it, but this is very accessible. You all do a great job with these I've been to a number of them over the years. So check it out. It's going to be a Dunseth Auditorium in Harmon Hall, which is very easy to get to in St. Charles. Go to newstalkstl.com and it links right to the Hammond Institute's page to get your free tickets. Doors open at 5:45. Looks like you are going to have maybe some, snacks and stuff like that. But the event starts at 6:30. It's going to be done by 7:30. So it's not a late night for anybody. If they've got questions, we've got a lot of ground to cover. So Grant Black from the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise, appreciate the update, and good luck with the event tonight.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right.
See you there.
You got it. 314-912-1019. This is also part of the Langdenberg speaking series, which some of those are done like at the Missouri Athletic, club, and so they do a lot of these. They're really interesting. That used to be a thing that happened a lot more. Somebody would give a presentation. There'd be a Q&A. People would show up for it. There was an interesting conversation that happened that followed out through coffee the next day, that everybody was having. And so we need to get back to more of that. So check it out. I just put the link up on Rumble. We'll have the link up on the others here. If you want to go or just want a link to watch it live in person at your home, you can do that as well.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
People talk about federal money as if it falls from heaven. We thank heaven for it, but it came out of people's pockets.
On News Talk STL. Love your couch but hate sinking into it? Custom Foam has your solution. We specialize in replacing your cushion foam with firmer options, firmer than anything you'll find in furniture stores, and a fraction of the cost of new furniture. Need extra firm support or soft cushioning for your back pillows? We have options you can test in person. From couches to window seats, dining chairs to custom projects. We'll have your furniture feeling like new in just a few days. We even offer same-day service. Visit custom-foam.com. That's custom-foam.com.
Are the days of a personal doctor gone? Not at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. I'm Dr. Randy Tobler to share how our design is putting the care back into healthcare. Plain and simple, our members, not insurance companies, get our exclusive focus. That means same or next day appointments, responsive answers to your concerns, and a no-spin, big tool chest approach. It's about time you get serious time devoted to your medical needs. To learn about healthcare the way it ought to be, schedule a discovery call today at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
Tired of floors that don't stand up to real life? Hometown Floors has the solution. With 40 years of experience, they know floors. 100% made in the USA. Luxury vinyl, laminate carpet, pet-friendly, and built to last. Free in-home estimates, professional installation, and satisfaction guaranteed. Hometown Floors, making small business great again. Check us out at hometownfloorsonline.com.
Experience the true flavors of Mexico at Dos Primos, O'Fallon's premier Mexican restaurant. From sizzling fajitas to homemade caldo de pollo, every dish is crafted with the freshest ingredients and traditional recipes, all made fresh daily in our kitchen. Cool down with our famous margaritas or your favorite cerveza, while our friendly staff makes you feel like family. Dine in or carry out. Visit DosPrimosMexicanRestaurant.com or find us on North Main in O'Fallon.
Love the music you hear on the morning show? Check out Mike's morning music playlist at newstalkstl.com.
Okay, in the 8 o'clock hour, I'm just gonna point this out now. We've got this really fascinating discussion. We've had Dr. Curry Myers on before, America's criminologist.
Yes.
And what's interesting is he's a retired sheriff, and we've had him on. You've heard us talk about his credentials. He's now a professor at a college. But you've got somebody with a lifetime career in law enforcement who is a big constitutionalist and is among the most on guard for government, including law enforcement, encroaching on people's rights. And he was an elected sheriff of a very wealthy area. And so he wrote an article on his Substack about a week ago. Has to do with what about all this AI and robotic technology? You can eliminate some human error from things, but at the same time, nobody's making split-second decisions regarding people's rights and safety, just programming in and out. And he wrote this article basically on how do we incorporate all this and make sure that we protect people's rights?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, a lifelong cop is more worried about controlling law enforcement than just say, give them whatever tools they can. Fascinating discussion. We're going to have that at 8:20. Okay.
Absolutely. It sounds really cool. And what's funny is I remember very distinctly a TV show that my wife and I got really into. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was called Almost Human. And it was about a series of humanoid robots, androids, who were employed all over the place, and in law enforcement they were the partner. So you'd have a human and then you'd have an android as a partner.
Was Kevin Spacey in that?
No, it wasn't that one.
Maybe that was a movie.
This one had Carl Urban as the cop.
Okay.
And I can't remember the guy's name. A mixed black guy with really like piercing blue eyes. I can't remember his name. But anyway, so he was the robot.
Got it. Okay.
And yeah, it was kind of fascinating. It's
Yeah.
like, because they're programmed to behave a certain way. They're programmed to empathize. They're programmed to do this, and they're programmed to and then of course there's the questions about, okay, well, now that you're removing, human error from the situation, are you also removing humanity? So
Right.
It's very very interesting stuff. So I'm always fascinated when science fiction starts to become science reality.
Yeah. So that's going to be at 8:20.
Yeah, I've seen iRobot. I've seen Terminator.
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah, that's
RoboCop.
right. That's right.
I want to keep technology and law enforcement as separate as possible.
Yeah, don't give the robots guns.
There's a couple. Well, that's the thing, though. That's one of the things I'm going to ask him about is
Mhm.
because in a lot of areas they are giving the robots guns.
Yeah, well, the
I
thing
mean,
is,
literally, that's happening.
in defense, our robots have guns.
Yeah.
They just do. It's already happening. It's happened, I should say.
Yeah.
It's past tense, guys.
I
We've
mean,
already
because
crossed that Rubicon.
they can zero in like in a sniper situation,
Mhm.
or I mean, it's one thing to have the robot go in and cover up the device that could be a bomb.
Oh, sure,
and
yeah,
not risk a human life. There's no ethical quandary with that,
Right. Yeah, the bomb
You know,
disposal robots.
right?
Yeah.
There's not, but it's in the other areas where lives are on the line, the good guys and the bad guys.
Mhm.
That you've got robotics and artificial intelligence, and as it becomes harder and harder to recruit for law enforcement, how do we incorporate that and still maintain that ethics? Because we honestly, the law enforcement is held to an ethical standard, whereas the bad guys don't. That's what makes
Mhm.
them bad guys.
Yep.
Is that they don't uphold to that.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
That's right. So we're going to talk about that. I think it's going to be fascinating.
Oh,
at
yeah.
8:20,
Mhm.
and I think I sent you the link to his article.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's put that out there as well. That's
Okay.
interesting. All right. 7:54. Okay. So because we got 2 minutes here, something like that. Okay. I saw a thing on BuzzFeed. We were joking about like the boomers and the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas. Somebody asked the question to the older folks, the boomers, so older than any of us here.
Mhm.
What are you shocked that Gen Zers can't do? The common life skills.
Oh my gosh.
Let me just go through some of these real quick here.
All of the things.
Yeah. How to read an actual map.
Mhm.
Because I remember my dad, planning out our vacations with the Rand McNally paper maps.
Yes.
And my mom would navigate, and then
Mhm.
I had to learn how to use the map and plan it out.
Yeah.
Right. Ask a typical younger person, do you know how to do that? Nope. How
Yeah.
do you find it in the quadrant on the? No, you
Mhm.
can't do that.
Yep.
How to go to the big box that zooms in on the little,
Now, to be fair, the end of our generation, we were losing it too. We would still have paper, but they're printouts from randmcnally.com where we had, or MapQuest. Remember the MapQuest?
Oh, I remember MapQuest.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Okay, some other things. How to address a piece of mail.
That's wait,
I was
nobody
taught
knows
that
how-
in school.
Yeah, that was a school thing.
No,
like
yeah.
you would
Nobody
have
mails
you'd have a
anything
sequence
anymore.
where you'd write a letter, in proper format, and then you'd address it and everything. We had pen pals and stuff for that.
Number 3, pen pals were fun.
Pen pals were fun.
Number 3, how to unclog a toilet using a plunger.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's not known.
Apparently that's not known. You just call somebody.
Okay. All right.
How to tell time on a clock that actually has hands on it.
I've
Not
seen,
the digital,
I've
not the
seen
number.
That. I've seen that issue. Yeah. There was a guy who was screaming about, what do you mean a quarter till this? What is a quarter? It's like, what do you mean? 25 minutes doesn't even make any sense. It's quarter of an
I have
hour,
seen
buddy.
this one in person at fast food places. How to count correct change.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me that
Mm-hmm.
that's the case. Let's see here. And I'm kind of guilty of this one. How to mend clothes and sew on buttons. I never learned how to sew. I should have, but I didn't.
You know what's interesting? All of these things were things that we were taught in school.
Yeah.
And apparently is not taught in school.
No, it's
anymore.
not taught anymore. It's not. Of course, back then, we boys went to shop and the girls were sent to home ec.
Yeah.
So they were taught, and we weren't. This is in the 80s.
Mhm.
We still did that. And then, for instance, how to do basic handyman skills,
Mhm.
outlet replacement, change. You just did a big renovation on your basement. You know how to do this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How about this one? How to write a check.
Yes. Again, that's something I learned in school.
I don't even have a checkbook anymore, but I for much of my adult life, that's just the way that it was.
Mhm.
How to use a manual can opener.
Wait, were you?
Yeah, which is all I use in my house.
There are people who don't know how to use those?
Apparently not. Yeah.
Jerome,
I do.
Okay.
I eat a lot of canned foods. I had to figure that out a few months ago.
Also,
Okay.
how to read Roman numerals and write in cursive.
Oh, yeah. Again, stuff we were taught in school.
I'm a cursive guy.
Nice.
Tim Jones here. Being a recovering lawyer, don't call me for your legal needs, but you should call Todd Sivia and the fine folks at Sivia Law. At Sivia Law, they'll help you through all of life's transitions, providing you with legal services in the areas of estate planning, elder law, special needs, real estate, personal injury, and much more. Locations across Western Illinois and Eastern Missouri, including right here in Creve Coeur and Wentzville. Call Sivia Law today for any and all of your legal needs. 833-995-WILL. SiviaLaw.com. SiviaLaw.com.
Dude, this house is perfect. Crumbs everywhere, sticky counters. I've already texted the colony.
Sweet. I'll bring my 500 cousins. This'll be the biggest ant rager of the summer.
Let's party! Wait, oh, what's that sound? Oh, no, it's those trucks with the green wheels. Party's over, man. Party's over.
This is Derek, the owner of All Solutions Pest Control. We'd love to help you out, so give us a call today to learn more about our 67 introductory offer.
If a pest-free home is your goal, call All Solutions Pest Control.
Nate Lucas here for the Village Bar in the heart of Des Peres. Since 1948, the Village Bar has been the go-to destination for delicious food, cold drinks, and unbeatable atmosphere. Savor their famous wings, burgers, and onion rings, or grab a drink from their fully stocked bar. Catch all the big games and enjoy the company of their friendly staff. Plus, don't miss the 1879 Distillery, a one-of-a-kind experience right next door. The Village Bar offers the best value in town. Find the Village Bar on Facebook and come experience where history meets great times. You'll be glad you did.
Are uneven concrete surfaces causing you headaches? Polytime Concrete Leveling and Restoration has the solution. We're a veteran and family-owned business offering long-lasting solutions for all your concrete problems. From precision concrete leveling to our superior restoration services, our precision polyjacking outperforms traditional mudjacking any day. Call Polytime at 636-487-3282 for a free estimate or visit itspolytime.com. Mention NewsTalkSTL and get $125 off any job of $600 or more, or 10% off your service.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Belfast, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Or from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. It went on for hours, an overnight Russian attack on Ukraine's capital. A deadly drone and missile assault, Russia's deadliest strike on the city since July.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's cutting short his official trip to South Africa and returning home after a Russian strike on Kyiv killed at least 9 people and injured more than 70. The Russian attack on Kyiv came hours after weeks of peace negotiations appeared to be coming to a head without an agreement in sight. President Donald Trump lashed out at Zelensky on Wednesday, accusing him of prolonging what he called the killing field by refusing to surrender the Russia-occupied Crimea Peninsula as part of a possible peace deal. Zelensky has repeated many times during the more than 3-year war that recognizing occupied territory as Russian is a red line for his country. I'm Karen Chavas.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt suggesting the Democrats fighting the deportation of criminal illegal aliens are ignoring the will of the vast majority of Americans.
I mean, 89% of Americans in a recent CBS poll said that they support the deportation of all illegal immigrants who have committed crimes in our country. 89%. I mean, you can't get much more public support for a policy than deportations of legal criminals.
Leavitt speaking with the Salem Radio Network. The fast-moving wildfire it's been engulfing parts of southern New Jersey's Pine Barrens is expected to grow, with smoke affecting the air quality in the New York City area and beyond before rain arrives this week. That blaze covers about 20 square miles. It's roughly 50% contained. More volatility on Wall Street. Stock futures have been up and down this morning following yesterday's rally that lifted the Dow, NASDAQ, and the S&P higher. Right now, the Dow futures are down 105 points. NASDAQ futures 50 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Heard me talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF for Relief Factor.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84 this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday. Not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michaels Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michaels Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michaels Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
Mike Ferguson.
This is the kind of adventure I usually have to force upon us, and here it is, falling into our laps.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
They're buying it.
Get up, St. Louis.
Watch a couple squats, son.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up, this is your cousin.
All right, there's a big change coming to Illinois politics. The most powerful man in Illinois politics says he is retiring. He is going away. Also, the Blues have a huge night tonight. By the way, there's a change coming to News Talk STL. J.C. Corcoran. Remember J.C.? Yeah, he is bringing the Wayback Machine to News Talk STL. That starts this weekend. You can hear that every Saturday night from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. This is going to be different because I've actually had a couple people text me like, Mike, you guys are talking about J.C. Corcoran on News Talk STL? What the heck? Okay, listen, J.C. has got years and, decades worth of interviews and stories about, music and all kinds of great classic rock because he's been there and done that. And that's what he's bringing, man. You're going to hear old interviews. He's got great storytelling stuff. This is going to be about music and the stories. We're taking a little pause from all the hardcore stuff. It's Saturday from 6 to 9. Put it on and enjoy having the family over for the barbecue. And you can have JC in the background telling stories from the good old days of classic rock.
Yeah. If we can't learn to separate the artist from the art, then we would not have some of the greatest pieces of art that we have out there. So I'll definitely be tuned in. So I hope all of you will be listening with me.
There you go. All right. Let's go ahead and dump some news on you here.
Wake up, America. It all worked out. They got all the news.
The morning news dump.
All right. The Supreme Court, as we were talking about yesterday, the Supreme Court on Tuesday heard arguments on whether parents can opt their children out of mandatory lessons on gender and sexuality in public schools. The case at hand before the Supreme Court is from Montgomery County, Maryland, And the parents there are saying the kids are being forced to read books on various social issues, including LGBTQ stuff. And we're talking kids as young as 5 years old. Education Secretary Linda McMahon was asked about that when she joined Fox's America's Newsroom on Wednesday.
Well, I'm not sure what the Supreme Court will do. I think it's a little hard to always guess, but they seem certainly to, at least in their comments, be on the side of parents, as I clearly am, and I think the Department of Education is, for parental rights.
A decision on the case is expected by the end of June. All right, some big news when it comes to Illinois politics. Yeah, Illinois' most powerful politician, that is Senator Dick Durbin. He is the second highest ranking U.S. senator on the Democratic side in Congress. He made the announcement on social media Wednesday that he is not running for re-election.
The decision of whether to run for re-election has not been easy. I truly love the job of being United States Senator, but in my heart, I know it's time to pass the torch. So I'm announcing today that I will not be seeking re-election at the end of my term.
Okay, the end of his term is up for, well, the next term is up for election next year. So his term runs through January of 2027, but it's the 2026 election that's going to decide that. Dick Durbin is 80 years old. He was first elected to the U.S. House in 1982, and then he was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1996. So that makes it his fifth term, I guess, that he's in the U.S. Senate alone. So he's been in elected office since the first term of the Reagan administration.
That's wild to me.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. He should retire. He should have retired ages ago.
Yeah. You know, the funny part is when you look at him now, it's like he's 80, but he's actually in really good health.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to be. He sounds strong.
Yeah. I think he would have easily won re-election. So here's the thing is, that the Democrats are going to nominate somebody, if it's even possible, farther to the left.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to nominate a Pritzker type of Democrat. So do the Republicans have an opportunity to actually sneak up on this one? I don't know if that's the case, if that's possible, but a good, strong Republican nominee who could maybe get 46, 47, 48% of the vote even could really lift other Republicans down ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So there really is something in this for the Republicans to field and fund the right, strong candidate.
Yes, and in doing so, though, we have to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in our own foot.
Republicans would never do that.
Oh no, yeah, of course, we're really good with guns, except, but no. I think that it's very possible that the purity test might get us on this, and we'll end up with entirely probably a very solid conservative candidate who gets 6% of the vote or something crazy. Yeah, I'm overstating it.
Trump got 44 in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So the question comes, are you running to win the seat?
Right.
Which is highly unlikely,
Mm-hmm.
not impossible, but unlikely.
The big lift.
Or are you running somebody to be the standard bearer
Mm-hmm.
to help the other candidates in the more conservative areas raise their ability to run? So it just really, what's the strategy?
Yeah.
And if it's the latter, are you willing to find somebody who's going to dedicate a year and a half of their life to running a race that they're probably going to lose just to help other people out?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Yeah, in order to get the candidate, you're going to have to give them something. What's in it for the candidate?
That's right. All right, Elon Musk. Have you noticed that Doge has just kind of disappeared from the news lately? It's not happening.
Yeah, what's going on?
Elon Musk says he's reducing his time with Doge starting next month. So when he was asked about it, President Trump, still speaking highly of Elon Musk as a senior advisor, and he blames Musk's temporary stepping away from government, blames that on protest against Tesla, both the peaceful and the violent, and the mistreatment by the press.
Everything he does is good, but they took it out on Tesla, and I just thought it was so unfair because he's trying to help the country, but he has helped the country. I also want him to make sure that he's going to be in great shape, and I know he is. I mean, he's going to do great. He loves the country. He didn't need to do this. He did it.
Okay, so here's the question. Now, Musk has already said, I have to go focus on Tesla. Their stock is down. Their sales are down.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a direct result of, obviously, the violence against the people who own Teslas. If you go to buy a Tesla right now, you know that you are making a statement, even if you just want an electric vehicle, with all the technical gadgets and stuff. So here's the question. Have the terrorists kind of won?
Right. Yeah,
on this?
it's a really good question.
Yeah.
I mean, now I don't think necessarily that Elon's stepping away is going to eliminate the work of Doge.
Right.
Obviously,
No.
yeah,
Doge
right.
is going to continue.
Doge is going to continue. So in that regard, the terrorism hasn't worked. Hasn't worked because the issue is, hey, you stop being involved in that thing, or else we're gonna hold your cars hostage.
Pretty much. All right. 12 states, including Illinois, to nobody's surprise, are suing the Trump administration over the deployment of tariffs, including that, up to 145% on China and that sort of thing. The attorneys general of those states filed the action in the United States Court of International Trade. All are deep blue states. All are the usual suspects. You're not going to be surprised at any of those. They are arguing, though. Now, this is interesting. They're arguing that tariffs and tariff increases require congressional approval. And what they're arguing isn't just that the tariffs are hurting the industries in their states, which is probably true. But they're arguing that the president should not have unilateral authority to do it, that Congress must agree on it, which is the debate that we've been having for the past, month and a half now.
Absolutely. And there are Republicans who are kind of on that side as well, right? Because there was a discussion about, well, we need to, claw that power back to Congress.
Right.
And that's kind of the constitutional argument. It's like, wait a minute, even if you agree with the imposition of the tariffs, that power should be in Congress. That's the argument that's being made.
Yeah. All right. Big night for the Blues. They are down 2-0 in the playoffs. Game 3 of that series with Winnipeg happens tonight at Enterprise. Probably for TV purposes, this is the late game tonight. Puck drops at 8:30. So anybody want to go downtown for an 8:30 start that's going to keep you there till about 11 o'clock at night? No. Yeah, that drew a snort.
That's a gigantic no.
Yeah. But if you'd rather watch it on TV, ESPN2 and FanDuel are both carrying the game. All right, the Cardinals end up losing the series with the Braves. Yesterday's final score in Atlanta was 4-1. Today's a travel day. Birds are going to be back at home for a series with the Brewers on Friday. So we've got an actual division series starting up this weekend. We are now 25 games into the season. So we're like 15% of the way through the season already. The Cardinals tied with the Pirates for last place in the division. Both teams 5.5 games back. All right, just ahead. This is going to be interesting. America's criminologist, Dr. Curry Myers, going to be with us at 8:20. We've got AI. We've got robotics. Now doing police work. How do we make sure that that's done in a way that catches the bad guys, helps the good guys, but also still limits police to protect our constitutional and civil rights? How do you insert ethics into AI and robots?
Yeah, we want Wall-E and not Terminator.
That's right. I'm going to put his article that made me want to text him and go, hey, come on the show. I'm going to put that up in the Rumble chat box. Can we put that up on the other social media?
Already there.
As well. Great. So you can check that out and read that. But we're going to talk to Dr. Curry Myers, retired sheriff. Now he's a professor, and get his take on that starting at 8:20.
You want to give me more information.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
The strong protecting the weak and the good defeating evil.
On News Talk STL.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
Jewels on Hampton and St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-pressure colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks and sports memorabilia and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa, and jewelsonhampton.com. Call them at 314-752-5000, 314-752-5000, and jewelsonhampton.com. Jewels on Hampton.
Experience the exhilarating atmosphere of a Cardinals game. Join the sea of red in the wave around the stadium. Feel the rush of excitement as a home run lights up the sky with fireworks, bringing the whole ballpark to their feet. Nothing beats the thrill of watching the Cards get the W with the final out at the plate. It's more than a game. It's an experience. Visit Cardinals.com for tickets and info. St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
Game tickets? Check.
A round of cold beers? Check.
Ballpark hot dogs? Check.
Baseball is back, and nothing beats a night out with the guys.
Or ladies.
At a Cardinals game.
From thrilling games and mouthwatering eats to the iconic ballpark energy, Busch Stadium is the ultimate spot for you and your crew to dive into America's favorite pastime.
Make your next night out the best one yet. Join us at Busch Stadium, where every hour is happy.
For tickets, visit Cardinals.com.
St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
This app is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
It is awesome.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
Hey, this is Todd Showalter. Join me for the Right Mind Show on Saturday at 5 as I try to put some fun back into this wacky radio station. You know, and speaking of wacky, let's get back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
There is always an ongoing discussion over best practices when it comes to law enforcement and public safety, and how do we keep us safe and get the bad guys and not violate people's rights in the process. Well, at the same time, and up until now, this has kind of been a parallel discussion. How is artificial intelligence going to change our lives? What does it offer us? And what are the dangers of it? Well, now we're seeing those two worlds merge. Artificial intelligence, AI, and law enforcement. And whether or not you're on the right or the wrong side of the law, this is something that's going to affect us all. So where do we go from here? I'm Mike Ferguson. I am now joined by Dr. Curry Myers, retired sheriff in Johnson County, Kansas, America's criminologist. And Dr. Myers, good to chat with you again. Your Substack, you wrote this article just in the last week or so, the integration of AI and robotics in policing, opportunities and ethical considerations. I rarely read something 2 or 3 times too before making a decision on something. I not only found your article fascinating, I really enjoyed reading it as well. So I wanted to get you back on the program for that. So nice job on the article. But what I want to start with is the opportunities aspect of this. We know there are drones. We know there are robotics involved. But what we're talking about is taking some of the aspects of what humans do, or canines, I guess, and replacing them with the dogs. What are the more non-controversial areas people just need to know eventually could be done by AI and by robotics that right now some sort of organic being does?
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks very much. I've spent 24 years in law enforcement, and I've spent another 13 years teaching the next generation of police officers and lawyers as a college professor and as applied criminologist and criminal justice ethicist. So I wrote this because I wanted to raise the alarm on something that it's not whether it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And we need to understand how to embrace it and how to put guardrails up, if you will. The other day, one of the reasons I wrote this is when I was listening to Elon Musk, who's a brilliant man, announced that he was going to have humanoid robots, so AI robots that he's working on because he has his own company that's dedicated to that, right? And they've been working he has plans to have them working in his factories within the next year or so. And we already know that they're walking around some. In fact, China is using AI robotics a lot in the work that they do. So law enforcement worldwide is quietly moving in this direction. We're seeing more and more of it. Think about American law enforcement has really embraced drones as that capability. But when you think about the future, robotic canines probably will replace regular canines. AI-powered drones are going to be in the air, and they're not going to just be flying around. They're going to be thinking. They're going to have facial recognition. They're going to have, we already have automated dispatch in many ways, but even robotics could be used there. And robotics could be used in working with citizens every day, to include going out and confronting protesters and dispersing riots. It's an interesting dilemma that we're running into. Listen, I'm not anti-technology, but I'm pro-Constitution. So we need, we're racing into the future, and policing is going to race just like with everything else. And it's only going to increase quickly over time. And the most important question that I opined in my Substack is, should we? I think we should, but what are the unintended consequences as a result of this future?
Yeah, I mean, part of what you referenced in the article has to do with, like, for instance, replacing the canines with robot dogs. And some of that I would think is non-controversial if you got a robot that's a bomb-sniffing dog or a bomb detonating, so you don't risk an actual organic being, whether it's a dog or an officer. I don't know that anybody's going to complain about that. But then you're talking about, for instance, dealing with the riots and dealing with the violence, because there are rules of engagement that law enforcement has that rioters obviously don't adhere to because they're rioters. And that's where you get into the ethical aspect of that. At what point do you have a limit on what AI can decide versus how much should a human be in charge, or at least guiding what the AI does?
Well, we don't have that limit right now. That's the reason I warned about it in my piece. I want us to be due diligent, and I want us to think about the unintended consequences of the use of these kinds of AI humanoids that are only going to increase and get better over time. And in Dallas, Texas, just a few years ago, a robot was used to kill a sniper. It was sent in. It was a walking drone that was sent in. Now, it saved police officers' lives. But it opened the door to some some considerations on lethality and automated lethality. Do we want drones being able to be deployed to kill people? The military has to deal with the same ethical dilemma. Now, you mentioned crowd controls. If robotics are used in crowd controls, and you use machines to disperse protesters, and if it's in error, or you use force too early, what could happen? Now, you could make the argument, well, people do that. People could be in error. Law enforcement could be in error in how they affect protesters and how they work with protesters. And AI certainly could be used to deal with protesters and rioters, but what are the requirements? What are the boundaries? What are the guardrails? And quite frankly, law enforcement, in my opinion, has to be involved in those, because we're dealing with human nature, and you need a human to understand context. And we have to remember, context is very important. It's not black or white. Life is not black and white, and committing crimes is not black and white. Committing crimes often can be gray. And who's going to determine what that gray area is?
Yeah, we're visiting with Dr. Curry Myers. I'm sorry I stepped on your sentence right there. I've got about just a little bit of a minute before we need to take a pause. You brought up part of that interesting debate, in that when things get heated in a riot crowd control situation, sometimes human emotions take over, whereas you can program the AI or program the machinery to do that. Are there advantages that we know of now? It's just a matter of how we implement it, or should we be asking the question, do we use this at all, or keep it very organic and human?
There's no way we can't use this in the future. It's got way too many benefits, but I kind of go back to what the founding fathers would think, if they would be able to have the wisdom to see what this is in the future. They probably would say, okay, yes, but we have to put limitations and make sure that it's aligned with our Constitution. And so robots can be used in active shooter situations. It can be used in bomb threats. It could reduce human life, or it could have an impact on reducing the impact of taking someone's life. AI can manage logistics incredibly well, so we can process evidence quicker. We can handle routine tasks like transcription and report filing much, much better, and without the errors that we see in humans. These cool tools could also make officers safer. and help us allocate resources where they're most needed. So I'm a big believer in evidence-based policing. AI can be extremely important in evidence-based policing and using data to use our resources, whether they're organizationally or within the department, the staff, to be very effective in what they do. And they can partner, and a human can partner with an AI humanoid or dog and work with them on the streets, and be someone who can be almost like an active dispatcher or computer that can look up information and look into the person's eyes and said, yeah, this is Joe Schmo, because they would have that data in them. But the question is, are we becoming Big Brother as a result?
All right. So where do we find this article? And then I've got so many more questions for you after this short break. But right now, people want to find your article. Where do they find it?
It's I'm on Substack. It's drcurrymyers.substack.com. Curry is Currie, and Myers is Myers. Also, if you Google Dr. Curry Myers, all my Substack stuff, my interviews, my X postings all come up pretty easily.
All right, we're going to chat more with Dr. Myers here in just a couple of minutes. I got some thoughts on that. Okay, I want to talk to him in this next segment, but then I'd love to get your reaction and your feedback to that. So send me a note, either email me or send me a note on Rumble. We're watching that, or Facebook or Twitter, anything like that. This is really interesting stuff with Dr. Curry Myers going to be with us in just about another 2.5 minutes here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
The warming trend continues today. Mostly sunny skies and a southeast breeze pushing the high to 84 this afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower or thunderstorm late this afternoon into tonight, but boy, the chances are very low. Down to 64 overnight. Scattered showers and storms Friday. Not an all-day rain, but some on and off wet weather. Friday's high at 79, and then we're dry this weekend. Cooler Saturday at 70, up to 75 on Sunday. Very nice. That's your first alert forecast. I'm meteorologist Matt Shane.
Fox News commentary.
If you take out a loan, you got to pay back that loan. And if that seems unfair to you, it's called life. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
You take out a loan and you don't pay back that loan when you're supposed to, you will be in default and subject to consequences that come along with it. Welcome to the School of Hard Knocks. The Trump administration isn't playing around and will begin collection on those default student loan payments starting next month. You've been given a 5-year pass and that honeymoon period is over. If you don't make payments on your student loans, you will face garnished wages and other consequences. The crybabies on social media are hysterical over it. They just can't fathom the idea that they are indeed responsible for the money they voluntarily borrowed because Joe Biden told them someone else would pay for it. Well, this is a life lesson for those who prioritize eating out, self-care, vacations, concert tickets, and me time over repaying your debt. This process is not to pick on you. It's the reality of life, and you better get used to it now. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
Columbo here for my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The knowledgeable staff at Bluff City has served the St. Louis outdoor community for decades, and they can take care of all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your fishing needs, and more. Plus, while you're there, you can schedule a trip with a local fishing guide and shoot in their archery range. Bluff City Outdoors is open 7 days a week, 1 mile east of Fast Eddie's at 2813 East Broadway in Alton. Follow them on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on NewsTalkSTL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Don't hate, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Never paint again with Rhino Shield. Listen to what a couple of happy customers have to say.
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted. Our building was really faded. You came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
What a wonderful job they did. It's beautiful. They were very thoughtful, kind, considerate guys. Appreciate all the work that these two young men did.
Call Rhino Shield, 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
Don't hate, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
What happens next?
Because of that Afghanistan withdrawal, we have damaged our credibility.
Happens right here.
He was texting war plans.
Nobody was texting war plans. 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey, this is Larry Connors. Make sure you're listening later today at 6 o'clock on News Talk STL for my show, Larry Connors USA. Now, back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
I don't know why I find this really fascinating, other than you've got such real life merged with the discussion of the ethereal, the ethical aspect of this. And it just goes to show that if we want to do things right in our society, you cannot get away from asking the questions over the ethics and the humanity. And in the case of the United States, what are the constitutional principles and limits on government? The article, which you can find on Substack, the integration of AI and robotics in policing, opportunities and ethical considerations. And we're still joined by Dr. Curry Myers, who wrote that article. And Curry, thanks so much for sticking around a little bit longer. I rarely do 2-segment discussions on the program, but I'm just find this so fascinating because it's such real life. And like you just said, there's so many things that law enforcement has to do that are split-second decisions. Human error is a real thing. But with robots, you may think, okay, robots are AI. We can just program them. They automatically default to the right decision. But it's just not that clear is what I'm hearing you say, especially when you say a lot of law enforcement is that gray area. So when we talk about avoiding as many unintended consequences as we can, like you just said a little bit ago, what are the ways that law enforcement should approach building the AI? Because a lot of people forget we are in the infancy of AI. We don't even know what this is capable of yet.
That's very true. AI doesn't understand context, at least it doesn't right now. Now, could it, 25 years from now? That's very possible. It doesn't read a situation. It is only as good as the data or input that goes into it, right? So if you use AI right now, if you decide to write a paper and use AI to help you do research, if you just say write a paper on criminology, it's going to only write that paper with the information that it has been put into it, and by scanning certain areas that is going to give you the data. It's probably going to lean left. It's probably not going to be everything that you need because of the person who built it and the cognitive biases that have been put into it because a human's doing it, right? And so it's only as good as the input that's in the data that's going into it. Now AI can be used effectively if you call AI out when you're using it and go, I want to understand the Constitution, and I want you to go back to the documents, the original documents in which the Constitution was written, and I want you to take a look at the writings of John Jay. and Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers and give me context. And so now you're telling the AI specifically what you want to have, and then they can start getting information. So that's the kind of stuff that you have to build in the future. So otherwise, if we don't, you end up in a world where you can't tell the person protecting the rights has a badge or a barcode at some point. And so that's, again, one of the reasons technology is a tool. It should always be a tool. It's not a replacement for moral leadership or sound judgment. It is a tool. And as Elon Musk is going to use his Optimus robots in his manufacturing process, he's going to use them, but tell them specifically what their jobs are. And that's kind of how you have to build it. But you have to put guardrails into it, and you have to build policies into it. We're probably going to watch the military first, because the military is going to be the first one to come up with this by they already have robotic dogs. They already have them. They're already experiencing and testing robotic soldiers. And so as we see them develop, then that applications are going to be then available for especially American law enforcement moving forward. I mean, we already have robots and drones that are New York City uses drones all the time. They use them when you have a 911 call in New York City, a drone is dispatched first to the location to give information back to the command center, even before a police officer shows up. And I'm not sure if you are aware, but a robotic dog, the Secret Service is using a robotic dog that walks the perimeter of Mar-a-Lago in Florida.
I did not know that, actually. We're visiting with Dr. Curry Myers, and you can find the integration of AI and robotics in policing, opportunities and ethical considerations at his Substack. And just look up Curry Myers at Currie and last name Myers. Okay, so last 5 minutes or so we've got, Dr. Myers. You're obviously, with all your experience in law enforcement and having been a sheriff and now, teaching it at the collegiate level. Tell me about the culture in law enforcement. I keep going back to that line from, the movie, 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, Jurassic Park, where, Jeff Goldblum's character says you got so caught up in thinking about whether you could that you didn't stop to think whether you should. Does the law enforcement, I guess, community, for lack of a better term, have a handle on we have to be measured and consider all of these other things? Or is it a matter of law enforcement's really been under fire for the last several years? Just give us whatever tools we can come up with and we'll sort it out. What's the mindset that you're seeing in the law enforcement community right now?
Well, when you mentioned Jurassic Park, I mean, we just have cloned dire wolves after 10,000 years of coming back. That nothing's bad's going to happen there, right?
Oh, of course not.
Come on, it's crazy. Well, that same stuff's going to be applied. I mean, this is where it's going to get out of hand. So, well, I put this back on you, Mike. That here's the problem: did law enforcement officers go out and enforce edicts by governors and mayors during COVID?
Yes, that's
they did.
That's an excellent point, because those weren't laws.
Yeah, I mean, so it goes to the point that power, if you want to see the total ability to use this capability, then look at China. And we don't want to ever be like China in anything we do. It is a surveillance state. And the ability to use robots as a surveillance state is incredible. There's incredible opportunity to use AI robotics and drones and all this as a surveillance state. So the question is, what is it going to be 20 years from now, my friend? That's the real question. And we better start building and understanding and having ethics. I'm a criminal justice ethicist as well as an applied criminologist, and we have to start building a tabletop moving forward on the ethics and the ethical dilemmas associated with the use of this kind of technology, so we can use it. But we have the types of guardrails, and we have the types of limitations, and some of it may have to be court limitations to be able to rein in and use. Now, here's the other question: if law enforcement's going to be using this, do you think criminal transnational organizations and criminals in general are going to be using this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. They are going to be using it. And if they are using it, we know right now that the Jalisco Mexican drug cartel is actively using drones, and they're very, very good at it. And they have actually deployed weapons of mass destruction on their own villages in Mexico to keep people under their thumb. They've used deployment of gas before by drone on their own people. They use surveillance all the time. They've flown those drones into America. They potentially could assassinate soldiers or border patrol officers walking the border. This is why it's become a great war on terror issue, and why the President of the United States had to make Mexican drug cartels a terrorist organization. And he's probably going to have to do it at some point with transnational crime, because it used to be local police officers now have transnational crime. The FBI used to do all that. Everybody has to be like the FBI now. Everybody has to have the capability, the experience, the ability, the equipment to do this kind of work, because crime now is transnational as a practical matter. And now we're coming off the last, really since 2014, we've had a reduction in policing because of the Ferguson effect, which was the hands up, don't shoot, which was a complete fabrication. It was a complete fabrication. And that's when policing started to get affected. The Ferguson effect occurred, which means policing is less proactive. And then we walked straight into the pandemic and the riots that occurred in 2020. And we've been taking a hit in law enforcement, and now we're down in numbers, and it's going to take us a decade to recover from those lost 6 or 7 years that we've had.
All right. And the article is called,
public safety is a core government service, and we need to stop giving tax revenues to non-core government services, and we need to make sure first responders are adequately funded. And you don't reduce the police officers' effectiveness. You have it under control, and you actually don't lessen the credentials for people coming in. You increase them and make the training even better and harder, and go back to what policing used to be, is they were ethically at a high standard.
Yeah.
We're not doing that today.
Yeah, and we're going to have new tools to use as well. All right, it's called The Integration of AI and Robotics in Policing, Opportunities and Ethical Considerations. You can find it on Substack. Look up Dr. Currie, Currie, Myers, Myers. Currie, great to talk to you again. Thanks so much. This has been fascinating.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, once again, give me a call, 314-912-1019, or shoot me a note on social media or through the app. Really curious what you think about that. I'll be really honest. I'm really kind of heartened that there's somebody with that much law enforcement experience who is going out saying, hey, law enforcement has to remain ethical, and we have to keep the constitutional rights of Americans in mind. That's very encouraging to me. What did you hear? Did you hear that? Did you hear something different? You tell me. 314-912-1019. This is 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, 99.1 HD3 and NewsTalkSTL.com.
Attention off-road enthusiasts. Iron Bear Customs has the strongest bumpers on the planet. Plus, brush guards, lift kits, and custom cages for all vehicles. Visit IronBearCustoms.com and mention News Talk STL for 10% off. Iron Bear Customs, built tough for the toughest terrain.
Discover Patriot Powder Coating, your family on specialist in Pacific. From small jobs to big projects, we got you covered. Visit our showroom or call 636-551-0377. Mention News Talk STL for 10% off.
Confused about tariffs and trade policies? The Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University and News Talk STL present economist Dr. Nicholas L. Zebarth in their H.F. Langenberg Memorial Speaker Series. Join us April 24th. as Dr. Zebarth breaks down what tariffs really are, how they work, and separates economic fact from fiction. Don't miss this chance to expand your economic understanding with one of Missouri's leading experts. Reserve your spot now at NewsTalkSTL.com.
Want to hear the best kept secret in St. Louis? Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares. According to our customers, we have the best St. Louis style pizza anywhere, and we can't disagree. Dine in, pick up, or delivery at all 3 Steph's Pizza locations. In Lake St. Louis at 111 Potterford Trail, St. Peter's on Juggerman, and in St. Charles on Zumbell. Check us out at Steph'sPizza.com. Steph's Pizza. We're not afraid to compare squares.
Join the 10th annual Jeff Hansen Memorial Foundation Sporting Clay event, a day of remembrance and support for our veterans. Saturday, May 17th at Black Hawk Valley Hunting Preserve in Old Monroe. Compete individually or as a team. Breakfast, lunch, and shells included. By participating, you're not just shooting clay, you're supporting Freedom 13 and our veterans. Reserve your spot by May 9th. Learn more and register today at jeffhansenmemorialfoundation.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Now that Newsmax has finally taken its stock live, I'm going to talk to the CEO, Christopher Ruddy, about what he has planned for the future of Newsmax at 5.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Hi, it's Vic Porcelli.
And Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Vic.
Ken and I are on every Monday through Friday here on News Talk STL. Right now, you're listening to Mike Ferguson in the morning on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Whoosh, my morning, people.
I don't know what I want to follow up on here. That discussion with America's criminologist Curry Myers, or the talk of a barbecue potluck with deviled eggs that's happening in the Rumble chat box right now.
Yeah, I'm going to start instituting a policy. If you are in our chat and you're talking about food, it better be during the very last hour, because I know you have your power bars, but I don't get to eat before I come here.
That's
So
Jerome's just getting hungry.
Yeah.
I haven't had deviled eggs in forever.
Oh man, see, it's
only make those, everybody, if you have enough for the rest of the class. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and apparently somebody in the chat ate a dozen of them for lunch. That's a little overboard, but it's like I'll go through. I can go a couple days without eating them. Then I sometimes just get that craving for them. Though something about it.
Problem is like if you eat one, then you want to eat the rest of them.
Yeah, true.
You know who's got really, really good develed eggs around here?
Who's that?
Firebird's restaurant over in Streets of St. Charles.
Okay, no more food talk.
I know, exactly. There it is. All right, so okay, that was. I normally will never do a 2-part discussion, and just in talk radio, but that was just so fascinating to me talking to Dr. Myers. Because first of all, usually, and I mean this to speak generally, I've been in the media for a long time. My dad was involved in law. He was a cop before I was born, but he was a chaplain for the Illinois State Police for, years. So he was around emergency services, and one of my best friends is a retired police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And he managed to not be completely jaded. He was, as soon as he was eligible to retire, he's like, I'm out. Young guy, strong guy, hits the baseball really hard. I play baseball with him.
Wow.
There's a lot of guys who you see the worst of everybody, and eventually you get kind of jaded. And then, police are under scrutiny that most of us can only imagine. But there needs to be a higher level of scrutiny, because we literally give them the authority and power of life and death in a split-second decision. So there has to be more.
Yeah.
And they're also given the ability to take away your freedom through an arrest.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to be this high level of constitutionality kept involved. And I love the fact that after decades in law enforcement, you've got Dr. Curry Myers, who says that still takes precedent. Because there's a lot of people who say, we've got a tough job. Let us do our job. We'll sort out who was right or wrong later. And if we were wrong, we'll deal with it later. Well, you can't really do that. Well, I mean, you have to sometimes, but what he's saying is when you're looking at all these additional tools that are being involved in law enforcement, you must put safeguards in so the people and the ethics and the constitutionality are still in charge.
Yeah.
And with AI, it's still building on itself. That's the point of AI, is that it learns, for lack of a better term. It gathers data, because the AI of 2 years ago was very, very clunky.
Yes.
The AI of today is incredibly advanced compared to that. So imagine what the AI is going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. And at some point, if we don't stay in control and keep a leash or a harness on it, at some point, AI is going to decide it knows better than us in whatever technical term. I mean, it can't think or feel, but it does evolve. And that's the way that AI is set up. It's supposed to evolve. So it's more important that we keep our control over it.
Yeah. And that's where it becomes a tricky line to walk, is because on the one hand, nobody wants to sit there and say, well, if we have the opportunity to prevent violent crimes such as carjackings, shootings, stuff like that, kidnappings, then if we have the technology that can be put in place to help reduce that or to respond to it quicker, why wouldn't we? But on the other hand, what we see in the countries that are already implementing this, they're getting very authoritarian with what you can and can't do. And you can't reason with an AI the same way you can reason with a person. You can, an AI potentially could falsely identify that you're doing something wrong, even if you had maybe a special permit to do something. And then now it's just like, nope, you did a crime, here you are. Versus with a person, you can say, hey, I have a concealed carry permit, or I have, here's my badge to be here, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. And there are other cases where, is it just in a human situation the right thing to move through? I mean, how many times the police like, listen, that's against the law, don't do it again. Come on, relax. How many of our high school buddies do we have where the cops pulled you over, found that you had, a 6-pack of beer? What happened? They scared the crap out of you and took your beer.
Must be nice.
That happened. That happened to a number of my friends. It never happened to me, but happened to a number of like my friends in high school. It's like, they got pulled over. Cops like, what's that? Well, they ended up basically confiscating their beer and probably drinking it themselves after shift, but it was a trade-off, because technically they could have given them a ticket or even arrested them for minor in possession and, call the parents and all that kind of stuff. But if they sensed that was not really justice or worth it, or not good for community relations, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that, but you're giving up the beer. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And the human element needs to remain in humanity for as long as we can maintain that. But there are some other, some of these are these robot dogs that are being trained with AI, and they are armed, right? So how many people out there do you think look like you? How many of those people could potentially have done something criminal and might be on the run, and now you're the one that the dog identifies? And so there's a lot of ways this can go sour if we do not take our time slowly implementing it. But again, the slow burn is a way that you suddenly wake up and you're like, wow, I have none of my rights left. So where's the balance between that?
101 straight up on Rumble says, not much I'm actually afraid of, but I am way wary, very wary when it comes to the robots and with AI gaining ground. I feel like the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a matter of, okay, well, people need to be in charge. Well, I don't trust all the people building these things either. I mean, there's a certain wokeness that's infiltrated a lot of law enforcement, and certainly in the academy, where, and I mean the academics, that has infiltrated a lot of that, and that gets built into whatever system, and then that learns. So yeah, I mean, it's a great tool. We can't ignore it, especially like, for instance, when Curry was talking about, you could have AI that helps direct dispatch calls, that in some cases can make that more efficient. Or when there's a call while the police are on the way, you can shoot an AI powered drone over there to get visual and intelligence to tell the officers what they're about to run into. Plenty of things that are absolutely great ideas that can be used, but at the same time, you've got to make sure that you're only using them within those constitutional constraints, and that the purpose is to protect people's rights and help law enforcement only get the bad guys.
Absolutely. I mean, going back to something that's, like those traffic cams, for example,
Right,
right?
yeah,
Will AI be able to determine if somebody steals your car and now they're running red lights because they're trying to get away and they're speeding? Will they be able to identify, oh, this is potentially a stolen vehicle? Or will they say, oh, whoever's driving this, whoever's license plate that is, deserves a ticket in the mail now, right?
Right. Which has been a red light camera thing.
Yeah. So that's where, again, I think as a seasoning, as a light, anything that can be expedited towards helping save lives, in the medical field, they're actually seeing some pretty good use for it. But the medical field, besides, of course, there are safeguards for ethical treatment.
Right.
They're not able to go out there and impede on your rights and have you go and contest something in court. Now you have to take time out of your day to go and contest this, and maybe something that could have totally been avoided if AI had been not implemented that specific element.
Yeah, because what we deal with now, what we lay the foundation now, is what's going to set the tone for down the road. I mean, because when I said that in the conversation, I said we're in the infancy of artificial intelligence. We have no idea what AI is going to be capable of 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. Like I said a little bit earlier, we can't even imagine it. So we'd better be in control of it. That's not theoretical. That's not just ethereal. That is the reality of it, that we have to have the lanes set very, very clearly and not allow it, because at that point, if we don't control any tool, then it can be abused, and it will be abused, and it will be used to violate people's rights.
Yeah, don't let Terminator become a documentary.
That's right. Don't do that. All right, 314-912-1019. That's how you get involved in all the conversations here at News Talk STL. We've got the one and only Vic Porcelli coming your way in just about 6 minutes. So I'm going to bring you up to date on the national news in this information segment right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Don't forget, tomorrow's Flashback Friday. You got a little bit of time left if you want to send in some 80s bump music suggestions, and send them straight to Jerome.
Oh, yeah.
Serenity Wealth Now with